my daughter, uploaded her DNA to find distant relatives, and matched with my billionaire CEO, ex-husband's entire extended family, by complete accident. You hid my daughter from me for 18 years, Heather. 18 years. Jeff Taylor stood in my design studio, his 6'2" frame radiating the same commanding presence that once graced the cover of Forbes. His blue eyes, the exact shade Abby inherited, burned with an intensity that made my hands shake as I gripped my desk. She wasn't yours to find, Jeff. You made your choice when you slept with Lauren while I was planning our anniversary party. So this was revenge? Keeping my child's secret while I built $1 billion company thinking I had nobody to share it with? I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. Of course that's where your mind goes. To your precious company. News flash, not everything is about Taylor Tech or your family's dynasty. Then why? He slammed his hand on my desk, sending my carefully arranged material samples scattering. Give me one good reason why I had to find out I have an 18-year-old daughter because she spit in a tube for a college genetics project. Because you told me, and I quote, I don't have room for family complications right now. The company needs my complete focus. I stepped closer, my voice dropping dangerously low. Congratulations, Jeff. You got exactly what you wanted. No complications. Just $1 billion empire and an empty house. His face paled. Abby wants to meet me tomorrow. I know, she's an adult now and it's her choice. I crossed my arms, fighting back tears. But remember this, I raised her. I was there for every fever, every heartbreak, every triumph. You're just the DNA match that ruined my Tuesday. Have you ever had your entire life unravel because of a mail-order DNA test? Hit subscribe now if family secrets fascinate you, because this genetic bombshell is about to explode in ways none of us saw coming. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I was in my home office reviewing fabric samples for the Miller Lake House project when my phone lit up with Abby's face. Her college freshman ID photo that she hated, but I adored because it captured her unguarded smile. Hey, sweetheart, isn't it early for you? Don't you have that economics class you're always complaining about? I tucked the phone against my shoulder, still comparing swatches of blue linen. Mom? Abby's voice was tight with an emotion I couldn't immediately identify. I got my DNA results back. That's great. Did you find out you're secretly Scandinavian after all? I laughed, remembering her theory based solely on her love of Swedish pancakes. The Ancestry kit had been an 18th birthday present, something fun for her heritage project in her anthropology elective. Silence stretched across the line. Abby? Mom, I matched with people named Taylor. Like, a lot of them. Close matches, first and second cousins, and an uncle. And... Her voice caught. Someone who might be my father? A Jeff Taylor? The blue linen samples slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. The room tilted slightly as 18 years of carefully constructed security collapsed in the span of a single sentence. It's showing a 99.9% parent-child relationship, Mom. But that can't be right because you said my dad's name was David Ryan and he died before I was born. You said he was a graphic designer from Seattle. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing while my perfectly crafted life imploded around me. Abby, I can explain. So it's true? This Jeff Taylor person is my father, and he's not dead? Her voice rose with each question. Mom, I just Googled him. He's the CEO of Taylor Tech. He's worth like billions. His family owns half of Boston. Abby, please. This is complicated. Complicated? You told me my father was dead. For 18 years. The hurt in her voice cut through me like glass. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? I wanted to protect you, I whispered, the justification sounding hollow even to my own ears. From what? From knowing my father? From a family that apparently includes the entire East Coast based on these DNA matches? Her bitter laugh held none of her usual warmth. God, Mom, do you know how many times I cried over a father I thought was dead? How many father-daughter dances I missed, and he's been alive this whole time, running a tech empire 20 minutes from where I'm sitting right now at college? My heart felt like it might shatter. Please, let me explain in person. I can drive up to campus today. Don't bother. I have class. The coldness in her voice was so unlike my warm, compassionate daughter. Besides, I think I need some time to process the fact that my entire identity is based on a lie. The call ended, leaving me staring at my phone in the suddenly too quiet house. 18 years of secrets, of careful omissions and outright fabrications, all undone by a plastic tube and a sale on ancestry kits. I'd known this day might come. In the age of social media and DNA databases, secrets were increasingly difficult to keep. But I'd gambled on probability, on the vastness of genetic combinations, on the unlikelihood of the Taylors, who prided themselves on privacy and exclusivity, voluntarily submitting their DNA to public databases. Clearly, I'd lost that gamble. I tried calling Abby back, but the call went straight to voicemail. I sent a text. Please let me explain. I love you. This isn't what you think. No response. The house around me suddenly felt like a museum to my deception. Photos of Abby lined the walls, her first steps, elementary school graduations, high school tennis championships, all milestones Jeff had never known about. The life I'd built for us in Seattle, 3,000 miles from Boston and the Taylors, now seemed like an elaborate stage set ready to collapse. I moved to the kitchen on autopilot, filling the kettle for tea I knew I wouldn't drink. My mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. Would Abby reach out to Jeff? Would the Taylors, that cold, calculating family, try to claim her somehow? Would Jeff, with his limitless resources and connections, come after me legally? Before I could spiral further, my phone pinged with a text. I lunged for it, but it wasn't from Abby. Unknown number. Is this Heather Ryan? This is Ben Taylor, Jeff Taylor's cousin. We need to talk about the DNA match to Abigail Ryan. Please call me at this number as soon as possible. The kettle whistled, an oddly normal sound in a moment that felt apocalyptic. I turned it off, my hand shaking. They already knew. Of course they did. The Taylors had probably been alerted the moment Abby's results populated in the system. I should have anticipated this. The Taylor family had built their fortune on information technology. They were probably among the first to leverage these DNA databases for whatever business advantage they could gain. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I called my assistant. Grace, I need you to cancel all my appointments for the week. Family emergency. Of course. Is everything okay with Abby? Not really. I'll explain later. I hung up before she could ask more questions I wasn't ready to answer. Next, I called my lawyer, Rachel, who'd been my friend since design school and had helped me establish my business. I need a crash course in parental rights for an 18-year-old, I said when she answered. Specifically, what legal claim a father might have if he just discovered his child exists. Well, that's certainly not the contract review I was expecting today, Rachel replied. Want to back up and tell me what's going on? I gave her the abbreviated version, my voice remarkably steady, considering I felt like I was standing on quicksand. Okay, deep breath, she said when I finished. First, Abby is 18, which means legally she's an adult. No one, not you, not her biological father, can force her to do anything. Second, while he could potentially pursue you for denying him his parental rights all these years, the statute of limitations might protect you. It's complicated. What about grandparental rights? Could his family force a relationship with her? Not with an adult, no. But Heather, are you sure legal protection is what you need right now? It sounds like the bigger issue is Abby finding out you've been lying to her. Her words hit like a physical blow. I was protecting her, I insisted. From what? It was the same question Abby had asked, and I still didn't have a good answer, at least, not one that didn't sound self-serving in the harsh light of discovery. After promising to research my legal position further, Rachel ended our call with a gentle suggestion that honesty might be my best strategy now. Secrets have a way of causing more damage than the truth, even when the truth is painful. I spent the rest of the day alternating between calling Abby, straight to voicemail, and staring at the text from Ben Taylor. By evening, I'd drafted and deleted dozens of responses to him, ranging from polite deflection to outright hostility. Finally, I settled on simple acknowledgement. "This is Heather. I'm dealing with this situation with my daughter first. I'll contact you when we're ready." His response came almost immediately. "Jeff knows. The whole family knows. Better to get ahead of this." I turned off my phone. That night, I pulled out the small lockbox from the back of my closet, the one place where I'd allowed myself to keep remnants of my past life. Inside was a thumb drive with photos I couldn't bear to delete but couldn't stand to look at either. Our wedding day, our honeymoon in Greece, the early days at Taylor Tech when Jeff was still passionate and present rather than obsessed and absent. I didn't look at the photos. Instead, I pulled out the small velvet pouch tucked in the corner of the box. Inside was my engagement ring, a 3-carat emerald-cut diamond that had once belonged to Jeff's grandmother. I'd left it behind when I fled Boston, but Sharon Taylor, Jeff's mother, had mailed it to my parents' address a month later with a cold note. "Family heirlooms should remain in the family. Since you chose not to be family, please return this to Jeffrey when he comes to his senses." I never had. It was petty, perhaps, but it had felt like the only victory I could claim in the wreckage of our marriage. Now, rolling the ring between my fingers, I wondered if I should have given Abby something of her father's heritage, some knowledge of the Taylors, even if sanitized to protect her from the worst of their elitism and Jeff's betrayal. Maybe if I'd been more honest, this revelation wouldn't feel so shattering to her. My phone buzzed from where I'd placed it on the charger. I'd turned it back on out of parental instinct. What if Abby needed me, but the incoming text wasn't from my daughter? Unknown number. "Heather, this is Jeff. We need to talk. Tomorrow. My office. 10 a.m. 19 years melted away at the sight of his name. I could almost hear his voice, that confidence tinged with impatience, the tone that suggested the world operated on his schedule. I didn't respond. Jeff Taylor didn't get to dictate terms to me anymore. Instead, I finally called the one person who'd known the whole truth from the beginning. "Mom, it's happening. Abby found Jeff through a DNA test." My mother's sharp intake of breath carried clearly through the phone. "Oh, honey, are you okay?" "Is Abby?" "She's furious with me. She won't answer my calls." My voice broke. "I don't know what to do." "You tell her the truth. All of it. No more protection, no more shields. She's old enough now." "And Jeff? His family?" My mother's sigh held 2 decades of contained opinions. "I never agreed with your decision not to tell him. You know that. But what's done is done. You need to face him, Heather. Face them all." "I'm scared, Mom." The admission felt childish. "Of course you are, but you're also the woman who left Boston with nothing but a broken heart and built an entire life from scratch. You can handle Jeff Taylor." After we hung up, I stared at Jeff's text again. Then, instead of replying, I booked a flight to Boston for the following morning. If this confrontation was inevitable, it would happen on neutral ground, not in his corporate tower where the Taylor name adorned the building. But first, I needed to try once more with Abby. I sent a text. "I'm flying to Boston tomorrow. I know you're angry and you have every right to be. But please don't meet Jeff before we talk. There's so much you don't know." 3 agonizing minutes passed before her response appeared. "Fine. Coffee shop across from my dorm. 8 a.m. Don't be late." I slept fitfully, haunted by memories of the past I'd tried so hard to bury. Jeff and I had met at a charity gala in Boston 19 years earlier. I wasn't an attendee, but part of the event staff, a recent design school graduate helping with the decorations for extra cash while I tried to launch my career. He was already a rising star, 30 years old, and transforming his family's stagnating technology consulting business into what would become Taylor Tech. I was adjusting flower arrangements when he approached, seemingly fascinated by my methodical placement of calla lilies. "You're moving those 2 inches to the left, then back to the right, then left again," he observed, amusement warming his voice. "Is there a perfect lily alignment I'm unaware of?" I'd looked up, startled to find myself face to face with a man whose photo I'd seen in the Boston Business Journal just that morning. The lighting changes the shadows. I'm trying to find the most flattering angle. For the flowers? He'd seemed genuinely curious rather than condescending. For the entire room. Everything works together. The flowers, the linens, the lighting, the table settings. Change one element, and you affect the whole aesthetic. I'd straightened, suddenly self-conscious in my simple black dress among the designer gowns surrounding us. You care about details, he said with approval. So do I. Jeff Taylor. He extended his hand. Heather Ryan. And I know who you are, Mr. Taylor. Jeff, please. And since you know who I am, you have me at a disadvantage. Tell me something about yourself, to even the playing field. His interest seemed sincere, his blue eyes focused entirely on me despite the wealthy potential donors circulating around us. It was that focus, the feeling that, to him, I was the only person in a crowded room, that first drew me in. I'm a designer, recently graduated. Spaces, not clothes, I'd added, gesturing to my off-the-rack dress with a self-deprecating smile. Spaces are more interesting anyway. They affect how people feel, how they interact, how they live. He'd glanced around the ballroom. Like this one, ostensibly welcoming but designed to intimidate, to remind everyone of old money and established power. His observation was so accurate and so unexpected from someone who benefited from that very power dynamic that I laughed in surprise. Yes, exactly. The high ceilings, the ornate moldings, even the distance between tables, it all creates a hierarchy. Dance with me, he said suddenly. I'm working, Mr. Taylor. Jeff, and you've already adjusted those lilies 7 times. I think they're perfect. He held out his hand again. One dance, and I promise to make a substantial donation to whatever cause this is for. Childhood literacy, I supplied. A worthy cause. So? I shouldn't have said yes. I was staff, not a guest. But something in his genuine interest, the way he'd noticed details others overlooked, made me place my hand in his. One dance turned into 2. Then a conversation that lasted until the event coordinator shot me warning looks. Jeff had asked for my number, and I'd hesitated, aware of the vast gulf between our worlds. I design spaces that make people feel comfortable and at home, I'd told him. You occupy spaces designed to emphasize wealth and status. I'm not sure we exist in compatible worlds, Mr. Taylor. Then design us a new space, he'd replied without missing a beat. Something compatible for both worlds, but you'll need to have dinner with me first, for research purposes. His confidence should have been off-putting, but instead I found it refreshing. Here was someone who saw what he wanted and went after it directly, without games or pretense. 3 days later, we had dinner at a small Italian restaurant far from the elite establishments where he was regularly photographed. 2 weeks after that, he took me sailing on his family's boat. A month in, I was spending most nights at his Beacon Hill brownstone, falling hard and fast for a man who seemed equally captivated by me. The initial resistance from his family was predictable. Sharon Taylor, with her impeccable lineage and junior league connections, had assessed me with the cool detachment of an appraiser with a questionable antique. "And your family is in Idaho?" she'd asked during our first meeting, making the state sound like a foreign country. "Iowa, actually. My father teaches high school history, and my mother runs the local library." "How educational?" Her smile never reached her eyes. "Jeffrey has always valued intelligence over pedigree. It's one of his more democratic qualities." I'd understood then that I would never be good enough in her eyes. I lacked the right background, the right connections, the right everything. But Jeff had seemed unbothered by his mother's thinly veiled disapproval. "She'll come around," he'd assured me, "once she sees how happy you make me." And for a while, it seemed he was right. Our wedding, 10 months after we met, was a small affair by Taylor standards, only 200 guests instead of the 500 Sharon had initially proposed. Jeff's father, Richard, had warmed to me faster than his wife, appreciating my direct manner and genuine interest in the family business. The first year of marriage had been a dream. Jeff was attentive, passionate, and genuinely supportive of my fledgling design business. We talked about children someday, not immediately. He wanted to get Taylor Tech through its next phase of expansion first. I wanted to establish my career. It seemed we had all the time in the world. But success changed things. Taylor Tech grew exponentially, and with it, Jeff's absences became longer, his focus narrower. Board meetings ran into dinner plans. Weekend getaways were canceled for last-minute business trips. Our conversations, once ranging for hours across art, politics, philosophy, and dreams, became brief status updates between his meetings. "It's temporary," he'd assure me. "Once we secure the Morrison contract, things will calm down." But after Morrison came Phillips, then Westfield, then the IPO preparation. Each milestone achieved simply revealed another mountain to climb. The breaking point came in our third year of marriage. I'd planned an anniversary dinner at home, a recreation of our first date at that small Italian restaurant. I'd spent days preparing, even tracking down the same wine we'd shared that night. Jeff was 2 hours late. When he finally arrived, Lauren Chen, his chief operating officer, was with him. They were riding the high of a successful pitch meeting, their energy vibrating between them in a way that made my carefully prepared dinner feel like an intrusion rather than a celebration. "We need to go over these projections tonight," Lauren had explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "The client wants revised numbers by morning." "It's our anniversary," I'd said quietly. Jeff had at least had the grace to look guilty. "I know, and I'm sorry, but this is the DeWitt account, Heather. It could double our market share." "Work here, then," I'd offered, still trying to salvage the evening. "I'll give you the dining room. Lauren can join us for dinner first." "Actually, we were thinking of heading back to the office," Lauren interjected. "All the resources we need are there." Something in her tone, in the way she slightly emphasized "we," had sent up warning flares. I'd looked more closely at my husband and his COO, the synchronized movements, the private smiles, the excessive personal space consciousness that often betrays illicit intimacy. "Jeff," I'd said evenly, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" In our bedroom, I'd asked directly, "Are you sleeping with her?" His hesitation was answer enough. "How long?" "It's not what you think," he'd started, using the universal preamble to a confession. "How long?" "A few months. It just happened, Heather. We were working late nights, traveling together." "Stop! I don't want details." My voice had sounded strange to my own ears, too calm for the devastation I felt. "I want you to leave. We need to talk about this. It's complicated. The company—" "Of course." I'd laughed then, a hollow sound. "The company. Your precious Taylor Tech. It's always been the most important thing, hasn't it?" "That's not fair. I've included you in everything, tried to make you part of the Taylor Tech family. I don't want to be part of the company family. I wanted to be part of our family. You and me, Jeff. Maybe children someday. A real life, not quarterly reports and stock options." His expression had shifted then, from guilt to something harder. "Children? Heather, we agreed to wait. I don't have room for family complications right now. The company needs my complete focus." Apparently not so complete that you couldn't find time to screw your COO. It had deteriorated from there. Accusations, recriminations, the painful excavation of our marriage's slow collapse. By morning, I was packing a suitcase. The divorce was swift and clinical, like excising a tumor. Jeff had been generous with the settlement, eager to avoid publicity that might affect Taylor Tech's upcoming IPO. I had signed a confidentiality agreement, taken the money and walked away, my heart shattered but my bank account healthier than I'd ever imagined possible. 6 weeks later, I discovered I was pregnant. My first instinct had been to call Jeff. We were divorced, but surely he had a right to know he was going to be a father. I'd actually dialed his personal number, the one few people had. But before I could press call, I'd seen the news alert on my laptop screen. Taylor Tech CEO Jeff Taylor and COO Lauren Chen make first public appearance as a couple at Mastech Awards. The accompanying photo showed them arriving at the gala, Lauren resplendent in a designer gown, her hand possessively on Jeff's arm. They were both beaming, the picture of successful ambition, professional and personal alignment in one perfect package. In that moment, fury overrode obligation. Why should I tell him? He had made his choice, Lauren Taylor Tech. his carefully ordered life without family complications. Why insert myself and an unexpected child into that narrative? I deleted his number from my phone and booked a flight to Seattle the next day. The Pacific Northwest offered everything Boston didn't: distance from the Taylors, relative anonymity, and a thriving design scene ready to embrace new talent. I'd used my divorce settlement to buy a small house and establish my design studio, focusing on residential projects that allowed for flexible hours once Abby arrived. When my daughter was born, perfect, red-faced, and screaming her displeasure at the world, any lingering doubt about my decision evaporated. I looked into her tiny face and vowed she would never feel unwanted or inconvenient. She would be my priority, always, in a way I had never been Jeff's. The fiction about David Ryan, graphic designer from Seattle, developed gradually. When Abby was 3 and first asked about her father, I created a simple story she could understand. He had died before she was born, but he had loved her very much. As she grew older, I added details. He had my green eyes, a genetic impossibility with Jeff's dominant blue, but she was too young to question it. He was creative like her. He had been kind and funny. I built my design business steadily over the years, gaining recognition for my clean aesthetic and client-centered approach. By the time Abby was in high school, Heather Ryan Designs was successful enough to afford her tennis lessons, summer camps, and eventually, tuition at Northeastern University in Boston. The irony of her choosing a school in the city I'd fled hadn't escaped me. But Boston was a big place, and the likelihood of her crossing paths with the Taylors seemed remote. Jeff had become even more prominent in the tech world. Taylor Tech, now a major player with global reach. The divorce was ancient history. Lauren Chen was long gone from both the company and Jeff's life, according to the occasional news articles I allowed myself to read, and I doubted the Taylors thought about me at all, until a simple DNA test connected my carefully constructed present to my deliberately abandoned past. The coffee shop across from Abby's dorm was crowded with bleary-eyed students when I arrived at 7:55 the next morning. I'd taken the earliest flight from Seattle, landing at Logan Airport barely an hour earlier, with just enough time to rent a car and navigate Boston's morning traffic to Northeastern's campus. Abby was already there, hunched over her laptop at a corner table, her dark hair so much like mine, falling forward to shield her face. She didn't look up when I slid into the chair across from her. "Abby," I said softly, "thank you for meeting me." She finally raised her head, and my heart clenched at the redness around her eyes. My daughter rarely cried, had always been the type to get angry rather than sad when hurt. The evidence of tears told me just how deeply this revelation had wounded her. "I've been researching him all night," she said without preamble, turning her laptop to face me. On the screen was Jeff's corporate biography, complete with a professional photo that captured his confident smile but missed the warmth his eyes could hold. Jeffrey Allen Taylor, MIT graduate, took over Taylor Consulting from his father in 2002 and transformed it into Taylor Tech, now valued at over $11 billion, divorced once, never remarried, no children. The last part twisted in my chest like a knife. "Abby?" "No children," she repeated, her voice rising slightly. "He doesn't even know I exist, does he? This wasn't some mutual decision where you both agreed I was better off without him. You never told him about me." The raw hurt in her voice made me flinch. "I tried to protect you." "From what? From being the daughter of a billionaire? From having opportunities I can't even imagine? From knowing the other half of who I am?" Her green eyes, the ones she'd inherited from me, not the fictional David Ryan, flashed with anger. "Do you know how many times I've wondered about him? Made up stories about what he might have been like? Felt that hole where a father should have been? I know, and I'm so sorry." I reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "When your father and I divorced, he made it very clear that his company was his priority. He was involved with someone else, someone he worked with. He told me he didn't have room in his life for family complications. When I found out I was pregnant a few weeks later, I made a choice. A choice you had no right to make. He deserved to know. I deserved to know." "You're right," Admitting it felt like stepping off a cliff, but it was time for honesty. I was hurt and angry, and I made a decision based on those emotions. By the time I was ready to reconsider, you were already 2 years old. And I couldn't bear the thought of the Taylors sweeping in with their money and influence to take you away from me. So you lied. For 18 years. Yes. There was no defense I could offer that wouldn't sound like an excuse. Abby was quiet for a long moment, staring into her untouched coffee. His cousin contacted me last night, Ben Taylor. He said the family wants to meet me. That Jeff, my father, is in shock but wants to see me. Alarm bells rang in my head. Abby, please don't meet them without me. The Taylors are complicated, especially Sharon, Jeff's mother. My grandmother, she corrected, the word clearly strange on her tongue. Biologically, yes. But Abby, these people aren't who you might be imagining. They're not going to welcome you with open arms into some warm, loving family. The Taylors are about power, legacy, and appearances. Unlike you, who's all about honesty. Her bitter tone cut deep. I deserve that. But please, before you meet Jeff, let me talk to him first. There's history you don't know. I don't know any history because you've kept it all from me. She closed her laptop with a snap. I'm meeting him this afternoon, his office, Taylor Tower, downtown. You can't stop me. I'm not trying to stop you. I'm asking you to wait, just for a few hours. Let me see him first. Prepare him. I took a deep breath. And I want to be there when you meet him, not to interfere, but to support you. This is going to be overwhelming, Abby. The Taylors live in a different world. She studied me, conflict clear on her face. Finally, she sighed. Fine, talk to him first, but I'm still going at 3 o'clock, Jan, with or without you. Thank you. Relief washed through me. I'll go there now. Why did you do it, Mom? Really? Her voice softened slightly, genuine confusion replacing some of the anger. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? The question I'd been avoiding for 18 years. I told myself I was protecting you from rejection, that Jeff had made it clear children weren't in his plan, and you deserved better than a father who saw you as an inconvenience. I met her eyes directly. But the truth is, I was also protecting myself. From the Taylors' judgment, from Jeff's anger, from the possibility of losing you to their world. It was selfish, and I'm sorry. She nodded slowly, absorbing this. I'm still mad at you. I know. You have every right to be. But I love you. And I know you've been an amazing mom. She blinked back, fresh tears. I just don't understand why that had to come at the expense of knowing my father. It shouldn't have. That's on me, not him. It was the most honest thing I could say. After promising to text her after I spoke with Jeff, I left the coffee shop and headed downtown to the building I'd never expected to enter again, Taylor Tower, the gleaming headquarters of Taylor Tech, where Jeff's name literally cast a shadow over the Boston skyline. I bypassed the main reception desk, knowing they'd never let me up without an appointment. Instead, I took out my phone and sent a text to the number that had contacted me the night before. I'm in the lobby of Taylor Tower. Tell Jeff I need to see him before Abby does. It's important. 3 minutes later, a young woman in a tailored suit approached. Miss Ryan, I'm Amanda, Mr. Taylor's assistant. He'll see you now. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent and tense. Amanda kept shooting curious glances my way, clearly wondering about my connection to her boss. I wondered how much the Taylor staff knew about the DNA bombshell that had dropped yesterday. Jeff's office suite was exactly what I would have expected. Sleek, modern, impressive, without being ostentatious. The man himself stood when I was shown in, dismissing Amanda with a quiet word. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow sounded like a prison cell locking. For a moment, we just stared at each other. 19 years had changed us both. Silver threaded Jeff's dark hair at the temples now, and fine lines marked the corners of his eyes. But the intensity of his gaze was the same, that blue that could shift from warm ocean to Arctic ice depending on his mood. You hid my daughter from me for 18 years, Heather. 18 years. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the fury vibrating beneath the surface. She wasn't yours to find, Jeff. You made your choice when you slept with Lauren while I was planning our anniversary party. So this was revenge? Keeping my child's secret while I built a billion-dollar company thinking I had nobody to share it with? I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. Of course that's where your mind goes, to your precious company. Newsflash, not everything is about Taylor Tech or your family's dynasty. Then why? He slammed his hand on his desk, the controlled facade cracking. Give me one good reason why I had to find out I have an 18-year-old daughter because she spit in a tube for a college genetics project. Because you told me, and I quote, I don't have room for family complications right now. The company needs my complete focus. I stepped closer, my voice dropping dangerously low. Congratulations, Jeff. You got exactly what you wanted. No complications. Just a billion-dollar empire and an empty house. His face paled. Abby wants to meet me today. I know. She's an adult now, and it's her choice. I crossed my arms, fighting back tears. But remember this, I raised her. I was there for every fever, every heartbreak, every triumph. You're just the DNA match that ruined my Tuesday. The look that crossed his face then was complex. Anger. Yes, but also pain and something that might have been regret. She looks like you, he said quietly. I saw her photo in the DNA match details, but she has my eyes. Yes, your mother's chin too, unfortunately. Stubborn as hell. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before vanishing. You should have told me, Heather. Whatever happened between us, whatever I said in the heat of our divorce, I had a right to know about my child. Maybe. Probably. I sank into one of his visitor chairs, suddenly exhausted. But Jeff, you have to remember where I was then. Heartbroken, angry, newly pregnant, and alone. You had moved on so quickly with Lauren. The last thing you said to me was that you didn't want family complications. What was I supposed to think? That people say things in anger they don't mean. That circumstances change. He raked a hand through his hair in frustration. Did you ever consider that knowing I had a child might have changed me? Made me reevaluate my priorities? Honestly? No. The Jeff Taylor I knew was singularly focused on Taylor Tech's success, to the exclusion of everything else, even our marriage. He was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable. You're not wrong. Back then, the company consumed me. But people change, Heather. I've changed. Have you? You're still unmarried, still apparently married to your work instead. Would a daughter really have fit into your life any better now than then? You never gave me the chance to find out, he replied, an edge returning to his voice. You made that decision for both of us, for all three of us. He was right, and we both knew it. Whatever justifications I'd created over the years, the simple truth was that I had denied both Jeff and Abby the chance to know each other. My choice, my burden to bear. I can't change the past, I said finally. But I'm here now because Abby wants to meet you, and I want to be there when she does. Why? To control the narrative? Make sure I don't tell her anything that contradicts your version of events? To support her, I corrected. This is overwhelming for her, Jeff. Yesterday she thought her father was a dead graphic designer named David Ryan. Today she's discovered she's the secret daughter of a tech billionaire whose family is apparently all over her DNA matches. She's angry, confused, and vulnerable. Something in my tone must have reached him because his expression softened slightly. You're a good mother. Ben found her social media accounts. National tennis champion, honor student, accepted to Northeastern on academic merit. You've raised her well. The unexpected praise caught me off guard. She made it easy. She's an extraordinary person. I want to know her, Heather, everything about her, the 18 years I've missed. I know. And she deserves to know you, too. I hesitated. But Jeff, please be careful with her heart. She's built up this image of a father her whole life, and now she's going to be meeting the real thing. It's a lot to process. I'll be careful, he promised. Then, with a hint of his old dry humor, I do have some experience handling delicate situations. I run a global technology company. A teenage daughter is considerably more complex than any corporate merger, I warned, but I found myself smiling slightly. The tension between us eased, not gone, but temporarily subdued by our mutual concern for Abby. "She's coming here at 3, Jeff said. Would you stay? Be part of the meeting?" The vulnerability in his question surprised me. The Jeff Taylor I had known rarely admitted uncertainty. "Yes, I'll stay, for Abby's sake." I stood up, smoothing my skirt with suddenly nervous hands. "But Jeff, there's something else you should know. Your mother has already reached out to Abby through Ben. The entire Taylor family knows about her now." His expression darkened. "Of course they do. Ben and his damn genetic research project. He's been mapping the entire extended family tree, something about medical predispositions." He sighed heavily. "I'll handle my mother. She won't interfere." I raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Sharon Taylor? Not interfere? Has she had a personality transplant in the last 18 years? No, but I've gotten better at managing her. Taylor Tech is mine now, not the family business it once was. That gives me considerable leverage." It was strange, this moment of almost camaraderie between us, a brief return to the time when we'd been partners facing the world together rather than adversaries. "I should go. I promised Abby I'd let her know how this went." I moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, Jeff, I am sorry. Not for protecting Abby, but for denying both of you the chance to know each other. It was wrong, however justified I felt at the time." He nodded, accepting the apology with unexpected grace. 3 o'clock, then. 3 o'clock. As I left Taylor Tower, the Boston skyline gleaming in the late morning sun, I felt a strange mix of dread and relief. The secret I'd carried for 18 years was finally out, the weight of it lifted even as new complications loomed on the horizon. One DNA test had connected the past I'd run from to the future I'd carefully built, creating a bridge I'd never intended to cross. Now, watching my phone light up with a text from Abby asking how things had gone with Jeff, I could only hope that bridge would lead to healing rather than more heartbreak. Have you ever had a secret exposed in a way you never expected? Hit that like button if you've experienced the power of DNA to reveal hidden truths, and subscribe now to hear what happened when Abby finally met the father she never knew existed and the wealthy family that was suddenly claiming her as their own. After leaving Taylor Tower, I found a small cafe a few blocks away, needing time to process the confrontation with Jeff before updating Abby. The Jeff I'd just spoken with wasn't entirely the man I remembered. There was a maturity to him that had been absent 19 years ago, a depth I hadn't expected. It unsettled me, this hint that perhaps he had changed as he claimed. I ordered coffee and sent Abby a brief text. "Spoke with Jeff. He's looking forward to meeting you at 3. I'll be there too, if that's okay with you." Her response came quickly. "Fine. See you then." The terseness hurt, but I understood it. My daughter had always valued honesty above all else. Finding out her entire origin story was a fabrication had shaken the foundation of our relationship. As I sipped my coffee, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Heather Ryan," I answered cautiously. "Heather, it's been a long time." I nearly dropped my phone. Sharon Taylor's voice was unmistakable, cultured, precise, with that undertone of gentle condescension that had always made me feel like an unsophisticated country mouse in her presence. "Sharon," I replied, struggling to keep my voice neutral. "I assume this is about Abby." "Of course it's about Abigail, my granddaughter. The one you've kept hidden from our family for 18 years. Her controlled tone held decades of unspoken accusation. "I'm not having this conversation with you, Sharon. If Jeff wants to discuss Abby with me, that's between us as her parents. Jeffrey is in shock, making emotional rather than rational decisions, as usual when it comes to you." The familiar dismissiveness stung even after all these years. "The Taylor family has certain expectations and traditions. Abigail is a Taylor by blood, whether you acknowledge it or not. Abby is an 18-year-old college student who just had her entire identity upended. She doesn't need expectations and traditions right now. She needs space to process. What she needs is her family, her real family." The implication that I wasn't Abby's real family sent a surge of protective fury through me. I am her family, Sharon. The only family she's known for 18 years. Don't push me on this. Or what? You'll disappear with her again? Sharon's laugh was cold. She's an adult now, Heather. You can't control her choices anymore. And once she sees what being a tailor truly means, the opportunities, the connections, the legacy, do you really think she'll choose your modest little life in Seattle? The insecurity Sharon had always been able to provoke in me bubbled up despite my best efforts. You haven't changed at all, have you? Still measuring a person's worth by their bank account and social connections. And you're still the self-righteous girl who thinks emotional sentimentality trumps practical reality. Sharon's voice hardened. Abigail is meeting Jeffrey today. I've arranged a family dinner for tomorrow evening to formally welcome her. You're not invited, of course, but I'm sure you understand. Family only. Before I could respond, she hung up. I sat there fuming, old insecurities and new fears battling for dominance in my mind. Sharon had always had this effect on me, making me question myself, making me feel inadequate despite my achievements. And now she was trying to stake a claim on Abby, to draw her into the Taylor orbit with promises of wealth and opportunity. Would Abby be seduced by it? By the grand Taylor mansion in Beacon Hill, the summer house in Martha's Vineyard, the private jets and exclusive access that came with the family name? She'd grown up comfortably, but modestly. I'd used my design business success to provide a good life, but nothing approaching Taylor levels of wealth. My phone buzzed with another text from Abby. Going to the library to study until meeting. Might not answer texts. See you at Taylor Tower. Even the name, Taylor Tower, felt like a gauntlet thrown down. I could almost hear Sharon's voice. See what your daughter could have had all along. I finished my coffee and decided to walk through Boston, reacquainting myself with the city I'd fled nearly 2 decades earlier. So much had changed, yet so much remained the same. The public garden was still meticulously maintained, the swan boats still gliding across the lagoon. Newbury Street still bustled with high-end shops and beautiful people. I had loved Boston once, loved the history, the culture, the academic energy that pulsed through a city with more universities per square mile than almost anywhere else. I'd felt sophisticated and cosmopolitan walking these streets on Jeff's arm, entering restaurants where they knew his name, attending gallery openings where artists sought his patronage. But I'd also felt like an imposter, always aware of the sidelong glances from Boston society women who saw my lack of pedigree as clearly as if it had been stamped on my forehead. Sharon had introduced me at social functions with the careful qualification, Jeffrey's wife from Iowa, as though my Midwestern origins were an exotic curiosity requiring explanation. I wondered if Abby would face the same subtle judgment. She was a Taylor by blood, but she'd been raised by me, far from Boston's elite circles. Would they accept her fully, or would she always carry the taint of her mother's ordinary background? By the time I returned to Taylor Tower at 2:45, these worries had worked me into a state of nervous tension that I struggled to conceal as I rode the elevator to Jeff's executive floor. Amanda showed me to a conference room rather than Jeff's office, a more neutral setting for this momentous meeting. Jeff was already there, pacing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Boston Harbor. He turned when I entered, and I was struck again by how time had changed him. The ambitious young executive had matured into a commanding presence. Confidence settled deep in his bones now, rather than worn like an expensive suit. She just texted. She's in the lobby, he said without preamble, uncharacteristic nervousness in his voice. Amanda's bringing her up. Jeff? I hesitated, unsure how to phrase my concern. I got a call from your mother earlier. His expression darkened. What did she want? To tell me about the family dinner she's arranged for tomorrow night. The one I'm explicitly not invited to. Damn it! He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it gave me an unexpected pang of nostalgia. I told her to let me handle this. I'll cancel the dinner. That's not the point. The point is that your family is already closing ranks, already trying to separate Abby from me. I moved closer, keeping my voice low in case Amanda and Abby were approaching. I need to know you won't let them do that. That whatever issues exist between us, you won't try to turn our daughter against me. Something like hurt flashed in his eyes. Is that what you think of me? That I'd use our daughter as a weapon? I don't know what to think, Jeff. I haven't seen you in 19 years. The man I knew was singularly focused on what he wanted, and damn the consequences to anyone else. I'm not that man anymore. His voice was quiet, but intense. I won't lie to Abby about how I feel about what you did, but I would never try to damage her relationship with you. Whatever happened between us, you're her mother. You raised her. That counts for something, for everything. Before I could respond, the door opened, and Amanda ushered Abby into the conference room. Time seemed to stop as father and daughter faced each other for the first time. The resemblance I'd always dismissed or explained away was suddenly striking. Those blue eyes, the determined set of the jaw, even the way they both stood with weight shifted slightly to one side. "Abby," I said, breaking the silence, "this is Jeff Taylor, your father." Jeff stepped forward, his movement careful, as though approaching a wild animal that might bolt. "Hello, Abby. It's good to meet you. Finally." Abby stood rigid, her expression guarded. She'd changed since our morning meeting, trading her casual student outfit for a simple blue dress that made her look older than her 18 years. "Mr. Taylor." "Jeff, please." He gestured to the conference table. "Would you like to sit?" We arranged ourselves awkwardly, Abby and I on one side, Jeff on the other. Amanda discreetly exited, closing the door behind her. "I don't know where to start," Jeff admitted after a moment. "There's so much I want to know about you." "You could start with why you never looked for me," Abby suggested, her voice carefully controlled. "Or did you not know I existed until yesterday?" Jeff's gaze flicked to me briefly. "I didn't know. Your mother and I divorced before she knew she was pregnant. She made a decision not to tell me." "Why?" Abby turned to me, the hurt in her eyes piercing my heart. "It's complicated, sweetheart. I'm not a child anymore, Mom. I deserve the unvarnished truth. Both of you." Her gaze swung between us. "No more protecting me. No more convenient stories." Jeff and I exchanged a glance, years of shared history passing between us in that brief look. "Your mother and I had a difficult divorce," Jeff began carefully. "I had made professional choices that damaged our marriage. I was unfaithful." He stated this baldly, not trying to soften it. "And when Heather confronted me, I said things I deeply regret, about prioritizing my company, about not wanting family complications. So when I found out I was pregnant a few weeks later, I made a choice," I continued. "A choice that felt right at the time, but that I've questioned many times since. I decided not to tell Jeff about you, to raise you on my own, far from Boston and the Taylor family influence." "You didn't think I deserved a father?" Abby asked, her voice smaller than I'd heard it in years. "I thought you deserved better than a father who saw you as an inconvenience," I answered honestly. "And I was afraid the Taylors would use their money and influence to take you from me. Afraid Jeff would be an inconsistent presence, dropping in and out of your life when it suited his schedule." "I might have been back then," Jeff acknowledged, surprising me with his candor. "I was obsessed with Taylor Tech's success, with proving myself to the board, to my father, to the tech world. I'd like to think knowing about you would have changed my priorities, but I can't say for certain it would have." "So you're saying Mom was right to keep me from you?" Abby looked confused. "No." Jeff's answer was immediate and firm. "I'm saying I understand her fear. But it wasn't her decision to make. It was mine too. And yours. And now? What happens now?" Abby looked between us, suddenly seeming very young despite her poised exterior. "That's up to you," Jeff said gently. "I'd like to be part of your life, to get to know you, to make up for lost time if that's possible. But I understand if you need time. This is a lot to process. Your grandmother, Jeff's mother, has arranged a family dinner for tomorrow night," I added reluctantly. "But you don't have to go if you're not ready. Actually, I'd like to meet them." Abby straightened in her chair. "All of them. I have questions about medical history, family background, genetics." I noticed she didn't mention emotional connection, just practical information. My pragmatic daughter was trying to approach this rationally, to keep her feelings protected. "Of course," Jeff agreed. Whatever you want to know. But Heather's right. You don't have to rush into anything. My family can be overwhelming. I'm not fragile. A flash of that stubborn Taylor chin. I can handle meeting my relatives. I know you're not fragile, Abby, I said softly. But this is uncharted territory for all of us. It's okay to take it slowly. I've already lost 18 years with my father. I don't want to waste more time. There was an undercurrent of accusation in her voice that made me flinch. Jeff must have noticed because he intervened. Abby, whatever happened in the past, your mother has always acted out of love for you. I hope you know that. His defense of me was unexpected and touched something deep inside that I quickly suppressed. This wasn't about us. It was about Abby. Tell me about yourself, Jeff continued, changing the subject. I know the basics from what I could find online. Tennis champion, honor student at Northeastern. Studying what? Business. Environmental science with a minor in data analytics. Abby relaxed slightly on more comfortable ground. I'm interested in how technology can help address climate change. Data analytics, Jeff repeated with a small smile. The Taylor tech gene shows itself. I thought I got it from Mom's side. She always said my grandfather, her father, was good with numbers. The lie I'd constructed to explain away Abby's natural aptitude for mathematics hung awkwardly in the air. Your grandfather, my father, was actually a history teacher, I admitted quietly. The numerical ability comes from the Taylor side. Jeff's father was a financial analyst before starting the family consulting business. What else did you lie about? The hurt in Abby's voice was palpable. I tried to incorporate as much truth as possible, I said. Your artistic talent does come from my side. Your competitive spirit, that's all you, though the Taylors certainly have their share of ambition. Your love of the ocean, Jeff interjected gently. That might be from me. I sailed competitively in college, and some of my happiest memories are on the water. I didn't know that. Abby looked at him with new interest. Mom never let me take sailing lessons even though I begged. She said it was too dangerous. I hadn't been able to bear the thought of Abby on a sailboat, so reminiscent of the early days with Jeff when we'd spent weekends on the family yacht. It had felt like tempting fate. I have a boat docked at the marina, Jeff offered. Nothing extravagant, just a day sailor. I could take you out sometime, if you'd like to learn. I'd like that, Abby replied, a genuine smile breaking through her guarded expression for the first time. For the next hour, the conversation flowed more easily as Jeff and Abby discovered shared interests and traits. They both loved crime novels, disliked mushrooms, and had the same methodical approach to solving problems. They both played chess, though Abby admitted she wasn't very good. I could teach you some strategies, Jeff offered. I was captain of the chess team at MIT. Of course you were, Abby rolled her eyes, but her tone was teasing rather than bitter. Watching them together was a surreal experience. Seeing gestures and expressions I'd attributed to coincidence or imagination, now clearly revealed as genetic inheritance. The way they both tilted their heads when considering a question, the precise way they arranged objects in front of them, the quick, analytical assessments that flashed behind those matching blue eyes. As the meeting wound down, Jeff hesitated, then reached into his briefcase. I have something for you. It's not much, but... He pulled out a small, wrapped package. Abby opened it to find a simple silver frame containing a photo I'd never seen before. Jeff as a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, proudly holding a trophy. My first science fair win, he explained. I built a rudimentary computer program that could play tic-tac-toe. Not exactly groundbreaking, but it was 1980, and personal computing was still in its infancy. He smiled, a bit self-consciously. I thought you might like to have a piece of history. Of your history. Abby traced the image with her finger, studying the boy who would become her father. Thank you. This means a lot. The sincerity in her voice made my throat tight. For all my efforts to give Abby everything, this was something I couldn't provide, a connection to her paternal heritage, a sense of where part of her came from. About tomorrow's dinner, Jeff said as we prepared to leave. I'll speak to my mother. Make it clear that this isn't about the Taylor name or legacy, but about you getting to know your family at your own pace. I appreciate that. Abby hesitated, then added, "Will you be there, Mom?" The question hung in the air, laden with significance. Was she asking out of desire for my support, or simply confirming Sharon's exclusion of me? "Your grandmother didn't include me in the invitation," I said carefully. "But if you want me there, I'll come." "I want you there," she confirmed, and the relief that flooded through me was embarrassingly strong. "This is weird enough without navigating it alone." "Then you'll both come," Jeff declared, with a decisiveness that reminded me of the executive who could make million-dollar decisions in minutes. My mother doesn't dictate the guest list in my life anymore. As we said our goodbyes, Jeff asked if he could hug Abby. Her slight nod led to an awkward but genuine embrace that made my heart twist with complicated emotions. Regret for the years lost, relief at how well this first meeting had gone, fear of what might come next. In the elevator descending from the executive floor, Abby was quiet, processing. "You okay?" I asked softly. "I don't know what I am." She leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly looking exhausted. "He's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone cold, I guess. Someone who wouldn't care about me." She looked at me directly. "You always made it sound like he chose his career over family, like he was this workaholic who couldn't be bothered with relationships. But he seems nice, interested, genuine." The subtle accusation stung, but I couldn't deny there was truth to it. I'd carefully constructed a narrative of Jeff that emphasized his ambition and emotional unavailability, leaving out his warmth, his humor, his capacity for intense focus on things and people that captured his interest. "People are complicated, Abby. Your father and I had a complex relationship with a painful ending. I probably didn't give you the most balanced picture of him. Why didn't you just tell me the truth, that he didn't know about me?" We exited the elevator into the grand lobby of Taylor Tower, where sleek design and cutting-edge technology showcased Taylor Tech's innovative brand. A massive digital wall displayed the company's global impact in real-time data visualization, stock prices, user metrics, environmental impact reductions, Jeff's vision, rendered in light and numbers. "It seemed simpler at first," I admitted as we walked through the lobby. "When you were little and asked about your dad, saying he died felt kinder than saying he didn't know you existed or that I chose not to tell him. As you got older, the lie was already established, and changing it meant admitting I'd been dishonest for years." I swallowed hard. "I was afraid you'd hate me for keeping him from you." "I don't hate you, Mom." She stopped walking, turning to face me fully. "I'm angry and confused, and I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. But I don't hate you." "Thank you for that." I blinked back tears. "So what now? How do you want to handle tomorrow's dinner?" "Together," she said firmly. "Whatever happens with the Taylors, we face it together. Deal?" "Deal?" I squeezed her hand, grateful for her resilience and generosity of spirit. "Want to grab some real food? I haven't eaten since that coffee with you this morning." "Can't. I have a study group at 5. She checked her watch. "Actually, I should head back to campus now. But I'll text you later about tomorrow. Maybe we can meet beforehand." "Absolutely." I watched her walk away, her confident stride carrying her through the revolving doors and into the Boston afternoon. My daughter navigating this impossible situation with more grace than I'd shown in creating it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeff. "I think that went well. Thank you for being there. For what it's worth, you've raised an extraordinary young woman." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Finally, I settled on simple honesty. She is extraordinary. And yes, it went better than I feared. See you tomorrow night. Back in my hotel room, I called my mother to update her on the day's events. She listened patiently as I recounted the meetings with Jeff and Abby, the unexpected call from Sharon, and the impending family dinner. "So you'll be dining with the Taylors again," she observed when I finished. "Full circle." "Not by choice. I'm only going to support Abby." My mother's skeptical hum spoke volumes. And how did it feel, seeing Jeff again after all these years? Complicated. I sank onto the hotel bed, kicking off my shoes. He's changed, Mom. Or maybe he hasn't, and I'm just seeing what I want to see. But he was kind, understanding even. He defended me to Abby. People grow, Heather. 19 years is a long time. Sharon hasn't changed, I countered. Still the same manipulative snob, trying to stake her claim on Abby like she's Taylor property. Sharon is Sharon, but Jeff isn't his mother, just as you aren't me and Abby isn't you. My mother's pragmatic wisdom, as always, cut through my defenses. The question is, what happens now? After tomorrow's dinner? After the initial shock wears off? I don't know. It was the most honest answer I could give. Jeff seems determined to be part of Abby's life, and she wants to know him, to know that whole side of her family. And you? What do you want? For Abby to be happy, protected, loved. The automatic response of any mother. That's not what I asked, Heather. What do you want? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? I'd spent 18 years focusing on what Abby needed, what was best for her, rarely considering my own desires beyond professional success and financial security. I don't know, I admitted finally. I guess I want peace, resolution, maybe forgiveness, though I'm not sure I deserve it. From Abby or from Jeff? Both, I whispered, acknowledging a truth I'd been avoiding. But I don't know if either of them can truly forgive what I did. Give them time, and give yourself some grace too. My mother's voice softened. You made a choice you thought was right at the time. That's all any of us can do. After we hung up, I ordered room service and tried to distract myself with design magazines. But my mind kept returning to the expressions on Jeff's face as he discovered his daughter. Wonder, regret, determination. The way his eyes had followed her movements, cataloging similarities and differences, storing up details like precious gems. Had I been wrong about him all those years ago? Would he have been a good father to Abby if given the chance? The question haunted me as I fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, I woke to a text from Abby asking if we could meet for brunch before her afternoon classes. Relief flooded through me. She wasn't shutting me out despite everything. We met at a small cafe near her campus, the kind of place that served avocado toast and cold brew coffee to students and young professionals. Abby was already there when I arrived, her textbooks spread across the table in organized chaos. Midterms, she explained with a grimace as I sat down. Even family DNA revelations can't stop the academic calendar. How are you doing? Really? I searched her face, looking for signs of the emotional turmoil she must be feeling. Honestly, I keep cycling through emotions. One minute I'm furious with you, the next I'm excited about having this whole new family. Then I'm terrified they'll hate me or judge me or try to change me. She pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. Ben, Jeff's cousin, called me this morning, asked if I wanted to get coffee before the big dinner tonight. Apparently, he's the family geneticist or something. The one who found you through the DNA database, I noted, wariness creeping into my voice. Yeah, he seems nice, though. Not pushy or judgmental. Just curious. She fiddled with her coffee cup. I said yes. We're meeting at 4. Are you sure that's a good idea? Meeting him alone before the family dinner? Mom. Her tone held a warning. I'm an adult. I can have coffee with my cousin, second cousin, whatever he is. I know. I held up my hands in surrender. I just want you to be careful. The Taylors are complicated, so you've said, multiple times. She sighed. But they're my family too, Mom. I have a right to know them, to form my own opinions about them. You're right, I'm sorry. I reached for her hand across the table. This is just hard for me. I've spent 18 years being your only parent, your primary family. Sharing you feels strange. Her expression softened. You're still my mom. That doesn't change because I suddenly have a father and a bunch of relatives I never knew about. Thank you for that. I squeezed her hand gently. So, about tonight. What are you planning to wear? She rolled her eyes at the typical mom question. I don't know. Is this a formal thing? Should I be worried about using the wrong fork? Knowing Sharon, probably. The Taylors don't do anything casually. I tried to keep my tone light, but old anxieties resurfaced. I could take you shopping this afternoon if you want. Find something appropriate, but still you. That would be nice. Her smile was tentative, a small peace offering. Like old times. For a few hours, as we browsed boutiques in Back Bay, it almost felt like our normal relationship again, offering opinions on dresses, laughing at ridiculous price tags, sharing the intimate shorthand of mother and daughter who know each other's tastes by heart. We settled on a simple but elegant navy blue dress that brought out her eyes, Jeff's eyes, and complemented her athletic build. As she studied herself in the boutique mirror, a shadow crossed her face. What is it? I asked. I'm just thinking about all the things I don't know about myself. She smoothed the dress over her hips. Medical history, genetic traits, family tendencies, like, does heart disease run in the Taylor family? Cancer? Mental illness? Are there cousins who look exactly like me that I've never met? Those are valid questions, I acknowledged, and ones you deserve answers to. Did you ever think about that? When you decided not to tell Jeff about me? That you were cutting me off from half my medical history? The direct question stung. I did, actually. I researched the Taylor family's public health history as best I could. Richard, Jeff's father, had high blood pressure, but it was managed with medication. Sharon comes from a family with unusual longevity. Her mother lived to 97. I tried to be diligent about your regular checkups, your genetic screenings when they became available. But it wasn't the same as knowing. No, I admitted. It wasn't. After shopping, we parted ways, Abby to meet Ben for coffee, me to return to my hotel to prepare for the evening ahead. As I dressed for dinner, selecting a simple black sheath dress that had served me well in multiple client meetings, I felt like I was armoring myself for battle. The Taylor family dinner, a scenario I'd both dreaded and never truly believed would happen. Jeff texted that he would pick us both up at Abby's dormitory, a practical solution that also provided a united front as we entered the Taylor stronghold. When I arrived at Abby's building, he was already waiting in the lobby, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Heather, he greeted me with a nod, his expression unreadable. Thank you for coming tonight. I know this isn't easy for you. I'm here for Abby, I replied, more sharply than I'd intended. Of course. He didn't rise to the bait. I spoke with my mother this morning, set some ground rules for the evening. And she agreed to them? Sharon Taylor taking direction? I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. She's not the ogre you remember, Heather. A hint of defensiveness crept into his tone. She's 80 now, mellowed somewhat with age. Somewhat being the operative word, I imagine. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. She's still Sharon, but she knows I'm serious about making this easy for Abby, and whatever her flaws, she genuinely wants to know her granddaughter. Before I could respond, Abby appeared, looking poised and beautiful in her new dress, though I could detect the nervous tension in the set of her shoulders. You look lovely, Jeff said, his voice softening as he looked at our daughter. Very much a Taylor. Thanks. Abby fidgeted with the small purse I'd lent her. So, who exactly is going to be at this dinner? My mother, of course, Jeff replied as he led us to the waiting car, a sleek black SUV with a driver, naturally. My sister Lisa and her husband Greg, their son Parker, who's about your age, maybe a year older, Ben, whom you've already met. And my father might make an appearance, though he's been in semi-retirement in Florida and doesn't travel much these days. Your sister Lisa, Abby repeated, testing the name. So she's my aunt? Yes, and Parker would be your first cousin. Jeff helped us into the back seat of the SUV, then gave the driver an address I recognized with a start, the Taylor family mansion in Beacon Hill, the scene of so many uncomfortable Sunday dinners during my brief marriage. What about your brother? I asked, remembering the youngest Taylor sibling, Mark, who had been in college during my time with Jeff. Mark lives in London now. He runs our European division. Jeff's expression turned guarded. He's not able to attend on short notice. Something in his tone suggested there was more to the story, but it wasn't the time to press for details. As the SUV navigated Boston's evening traffic, Abby peppered Jeff with questions about the family members she was about to meet. He answered patiently, giving her a brief Taylor family primer that was notably balanced, acknowledging Sharon's formidable personality and penchant for manipulation, while also noting her philanthropy and fierce protection of family. Describing Lisa's warmth and artistic interests that might align with Abby's own creative side, explaining Ben's scientific background and genuine enthusiasm for connecting with newfound relatives. I watched Abby absorbing this information, mentally preparing herself for the evening ahead, and felt a surge of pride at her composure. My daughter had always been adaptable, resourceful in new situations, but this was testing those qualities to their limits. The SUV pulled up to the imposing brick mansion, its windows glowing with warm light that belied the emotional complexity waiting inside. A house I'd last seen 19 years earlier, walking out with a suitcase and tear-stained cheeks, vowing never to return. Yet here I was, about to cross that threshold again, with the daughter no one inside had known existed until 2 days ago. Jeff must have sensed my hesitation because he touched my arm briefly. "It'll be fine. We'll get through this together for Abby's sake." The unexpected "we" caught me off guard. For 19 years, there had been no "we" between Jeff Taylor and me. Only the memory of a failed marriage and the secret of a child he never knew. Now, as we ascended the steps to his family home, the dynamics were shifting yet again, creating a new and uncertain reality none of us had anticipated. Is it possible to truly forgive someone who kept your child from you for 18 years? Hit that like button if you believe in second chances, and subscribe now to see what happens when Heather comes face to face with the Taylor family who once rejected her, but now claims her daughter as their own. The heavy oak door opened before Jeff could ring the bell, revealing Sharon Taylor herself, elegant as ever in a perfectly tailored pantsuit, her silver hair swept into a sophisticated updo. Time had etched more lines around her eyes and mouth, but she stood as straight and proud as she had 2 decades earlier. Her gaze swept over us, lingering longest on Abby, cataloging every feature with the precision of a jeweler assessing a rare gem. "Abigail," she said finally, her voice rich with an emotion I couldn't quite identify. "Welcome to your family home." Abby stiffened beside me. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Taylor." "You must call me grandmother, dear. We are family. After all," Sharon's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as they shifted to me. "Heather, what a surprise to see you here." "Mom's here as my guest," Abby stated firmly, linking her arm through mine. "We're a package deal." I squeezed her arm gratefully, touched by her loyalty. "Of course," Sharon replied smoothly, though the tightening around her mouth revealed her displeasure. "Please, come in. Everyone is eager to meet you." The foyer was exactly as I remembered, marble floors, antique sideboard, oil paintings of stern-looking Taylor ancestors lining the walls. The house smelled the same, too, a combination of lemon polish, old books, and the faint floral notes of Sharon's signature perfume. Jeff placed a protective hand on Abby's back as we followed Sharon into the formal living room, where the rest of the family waited. I recognized Lisa immediately. She had the same blue Taylor eyes as Jeff and Abby, though her once blonde hair was now a stylish silver bob. Beside her stood a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair who must be Greg, her investment banker husband, a young man who could only be their son. Parker lounged on the sofa, his casual posture at odds with the formal setting. Ben, whom I'd never met, stood by the fireplace, younger than Jeff, with the same Taylor height, but a leaner build and scholarly demeanor that matched his genetics research background. "Everyone," Jeff announced, his voice carrying the authority of the family's de facto leader. "This is my daughter, Abby, and her mother, Heather, whom some of you already know." Lisa was the first to approach, her expression a mixture of curiosity and warmth. "Abby, it's wonderful to meet you. I'm your Aunt Lisa." She extended her hand, then seemed to think better of it and offered a quick, slightly awkward hug instead. "This is all quite a shock, but a lovely one." "Nice to meet you," Abby replied, her practiced social smile firmly in place. Ben stepped forward next. "We meet again, cousin. Glad you could join the family circus?" His casual tone and genuine smile seemed to relax Abby slightly. "You didn't mention the circus part over coffee," she joked back. Parker unfolded his lanky frame from the sofa, approaching with the confident swagger of a young man accustomed to privilege. "So, I have a cousin I never knew about." "Cool. I'm Parker, resident family disappointment and occasional tech support." "Parker," Lisa admonished, but there was fondness in her tone. "What? It's true." "Might as well be honest with our newfound relative." He grinned at Abby. "So you're at Northeastern? I'm finishing up at Boston College. Business major, but only because Dad threatened to cut me off if I pursued my true calling as a professional video game tester." This elicited a small but genuine laugh from Abby, the first real sign of her relaxing since we'd entered the house. Sharon cleared her throat. "Perhaps we could continue this delightful bonding over dinner. Ellis has prepared something special for the occasion." The dining room was intimidatingly formal: crystal chandelier, antique mahogany table that could seat 20, silver place settings that had probably been in the family for generations. I'd always hated meals in this room during my marriage, feeling scrutinized with every bite, every comment, every gesture. Now, watching Abby take in the grandeur with wide eyes, I worried about the impression all this opulence might make on a young woman accustomed to our comfortable but modest home in Seattle. We were seated strategically, Abby between Jeff and Ben, with Sharon at the head of the table, and me as far from her as possible, between Lisa and Parker. The message was clear. Abby was a tailor, being positioned within the family circle, while I was an outsider to be tolerated for appearance's sake. As the first course was served by the silent, efficient Ellis, the same butler who had served the family during my brief tenure as a tailor wife, Sharon raised her wine glass. "To unexpected blessings," she pronounced, her gaze fixed on Abby. "And to the continuation of the Taylor legacy." Jeff shot his mother a warning look, which she pointedly ignored. "So, Abby," Lisa began as we started on our salads, "Jeff tells us you're studying environmental science. That's fascinating. What drew you to that field?" "I've always been interested in how technology can help solve environmental problems," Abby replied, seeming grateful for the neutral topic. "Mom took me to a climate conference when I was 14, and I was hooked. She built a solar-powered water filtration system for her high school science project," I added proudly. "Won state and went to nationals." "A proper tailor mind," Sharon observed with satisfaction. "Innovation is in your blood, dear." "Mom's pretty innovative too," Abby countered, loyalty flashing in her eyes. Her design firm was one of the first to incorporate sustainable materials and energy-efficient systems as standard practice. "How progressive of you, Heather," Sharon murmured, the faint praise barely concealing her disinterest in my accomplishments. "Heather Ryan Designs is highly respected in the industry," Jeff stated flatly, surprising me with his defense. "Her work on the Hansen Museum renovation won national recognition." Sharon's eyebrows rose slightly at her son's intervention, but she merely nodded and turned her attention back to Abby. "Your grandfather will be so pleased to meet you. He's arriving tomorrow from Florida. Richard was beginning to despair of having grandchildren with the Taylor intellect. Parker here is more interested in entertainment than innovation." "Guilty as charged," Parker agreed cheerfully, seemingly immune to his grandmother's disapproval. "Though in my defense, the gaming industry is worth billions. I'm just approaching the family business from a different angle." "And what about your mother, dear?" Sharon continued, ignoring Parker's comment. "I understand she's a librarian in Iowa, was it?" "My grandma runs the public library system for Cedar Rapids," Abby confirmed. "And my grandfather taught history before he retired. They're coming to visit next month for Parents' Weekend." "How nice." Sharon's tone suggested it was anything but. "And will they be staying with you in your dormitory?" "They usually get a hotel," Abby replied, a slight edge creeping into her voice. "Though I imagine they'd love to meet everyone while they're here." They've always been curious about my father's family, especially since they thought he was dead. The blunt statement landed like a bomb at the dinner table, creating a moment of awkward silence. Yes, well, Sharon recovered smoothly. We'll certainly arrange something appropriate. Now, Ellis has prepared your grandfather's favorite dessert, a family recipe for creme brulee that goes back 3 generations. As Ellis served dessert with the same silent efficiency, the conversation fragmented into smaller exchanges. Ben engaged Abby in a discussion about genetic inheritance and traits she might recognize in herself now that she knew her paternal origins. Lisa questioned me politely about Seattle and my design business, maintaining the pleasant facade that had always characterized our relationship. I found myself watching Jeff, seated across from me, as he observed his daughter interacting with his family. There was something protective in his posture, a readiness to intervene if Sharon or anyone else pushed too hard. It reminded me of the man I'd fallen in love with before ambition and family expectation had hardened him into someone I no longer recognized. After dinner, Sharon suggested a tour of the house for Abby. "To see your heritage, dear." I tensed, anticipating some passive-aggressive exclusion, but to my surprise, Sharon looked directly at me. "You're welcome to join us, Heather. I imagine some things have changed since you were last here." The olive branch was so unexpected I nearly dropped my water glass. Jeff looked equally surprised, though he quickly masked it. "I'd like that," I replied cautiously. The tour was illuminating, not so much for the minor changes to the house, new artwork, updated kitchen appliances, but for the way Sharon narrated it for Abby's benefit. Each room came with stories of Taylor family history, carefully selected anecdotes that emphasized tradition, achievement, and influence. "This portrait is your great-great-grandfather, Alexander Taylor, who founded the first family business in shipping before diversifying into manufacturing." Sharon guided Abby through the portrait gallery on the second floor. "And here is your grandfather Richard in his MIT graduation robes. The Taylor men have attended MIT for 4 generations now." "Except Mark," Jeff noted dryly. "Harvard Business School's lone Taylor graduate." "Your Uncle Mark always did insist on being different," Sharon told Abby with a slight tightening of her lips. "A trait that hasn't always served him well." The loaded comment suggested family drama I wasn't privy to, though Jeff's expression hinted at deeper conflicts than Sharon's sanitized family narrative acknowledged. In what had once been Jeff's father's study, now apparently Jeff's when he visited, Sharon paused before a wall of framed photographs. "Your father's achievements," she explained to Abby. MIT graduation, his first major contract signing, the Taylor Tech IPO day, receiving the Innovation in Technology Award last year. Abby studied the photos with obvious interest, absorbing this visual timeline of the father she'd never known. I hung back, uncomfortable with this celebration of Jeff's success story that so neatly excluded any mention of our marriage or the years immediately following our divorce. "Where did you and Mom get married?" Abby asked suddenly, turning to Jeff. "Do you have any pictures?" The question created a moment of palpable tension. Sharon's spine stiffened, and Jeff shot me a quick, uncertain glance. "We had a small ceremony at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown," he answered carefully. "It was elegant but not extravagant." "Your mother preferred a more intimate wedding than the Taylors typically host," Sharon added, her tone making it clear this had been yet another way I'd failed to meet expectations. "I might have some photos somewhere," Jeff said. "In storage, probably." The lie was obvious to me, though perhaps not to Abby. I knew exactly where our wedding photos were, in that velvet pouch in my lockbox at home, along with his grandmother's ring. I'd taken the album when I left, one small piece of our history I couldn't bear to leave behind. "I have a few," I admitted quietly. "Back in Seattle. I could send you some if you'd like to see them." Abby nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I would." "It's strange to think you two had this whole life together before I existed." "A brief life," Sharon murmured, just loud enough to be heard. "Mother," Jeff warned. "What? It's simply factual. The marriage lasted less than 3 years." Sharon waved a dismissive hand. "Ancient history now, of course. What matters is the present and the future. Speaking of which, Abigail, I've taken the liberty of establishing a trust fund in your name. Nothing extravagant, just $1 million or so to start, with provisions for education, housing, and eventually career development. $1 million? Abby's eyes widened. I can't accept that. We just met. Nonsense. You're a tailor. It's your birthright. Sharon's tone brooked no argument. Jeffrey has been advised of the details and approves the arrangement, don't you? Dear? Jeff's expression suggested this was the first he'd heard of it, but he recovered quickly. Any financial arrangements regarding Abby should be discussed privately, Mother. This isn't the time or place. When would be a better time? The girl has been deprived of her rightful advantages for 18 years. It's time to rectify that oversight. Sharon's gaze slid to me, the accusation clear in her eyes. I haven't been deprived of anything, Abby stated firmly. Mom has given me everything I've needed. I have a college fund, scholarships, and a plan for my future that doesn't require Taylor money. Pride surged through me at my daughter's backbone. She'd inherited more than Jeff's blue eyes and analytical mind. She had his directness as well, though tempered with a compassion he'd often lacked in his younger years. Of course you do, dear, Sharon patted Abby's arm condescendingly. But there's a difference between needs and opportunities. The Taylor name opens doors that talent alone cannot. I think we've covered enough family history for one evening, Jeff interjected smoothly. Abby has classes tomorrow, and it's getting late. The hint was clear, and Sharon, for once, didn't push. Of course. This is just the beginning of our relationship, after all. We have plenty of time to discuss your future, Abigail. As we made our goodbyes in the foyer, Lisa pulled me aside while Jeff and Abby were engaged with Ben and Parker. It's good to see you, Heather, she said quietly, despite the circumstances. You too, Lisa. You were always kind to me. It was true. Of all the Taylors, Jeff's sister had been the most welcoming, the least judgmental of my background. For what it's worth, I think you've done an amazing job with Abby. She's poised, intelligent, and seems genuinely grounded. Her gaze drifted to where Abby was laughing at something Parker had said. Not always a given in our family, as you know. Thank you. That means a lot. Lisa hesitated, then added, Jeff was different after you left. Harder, more focused on the business, less interested in anything else. It wasn't until the last few years that he started to find some balance again. Her expression turned serious. This discovery has shaken him deeply, Heather. I've never seen him so emotional. Before I could respond, Jeff approached, keys in hand. Ready to go? The car's waiting. The ride back to campus was quieter than the journey to the Taylor mansion. All three of us processing the evening in our own ways. When we arrived at Abby's dormitory, Jeff asked if he could walk her to the door, a small fatherly gesture that she accepted with a nod. I'll wait in the car, I offered, giving them a moment alone. Through the window, I watched them talking, their profiles illuminated by the building's exterior lights. Jeff said something that made Abby smile, then hesitantly reached out to hug her. The embrace was brief but genuine, and something in my chest ached at the sight. When Jeff returned to the car, he was quiet for a moment before directing the driver to take me back to my hotel. Thank you for coming tonight, he said finally. It meant a lot to Abby having you there. You don't need to thank me for being a mother to my daughter, Jeff. I know. But I'm grateful anyway. He stared out the window at the passing city lights. My mother was, well, she was Sharon, but I think overall it went as well as could be expected. She's already trying to buy Abby's affection with trust funds and Taylor legacy talk. I'll handle my mother, he assured me. Make it clear that any financial decisions regarding Abby go through both of us, and only with her consent. The both of us caught me off guard again. It was strange how quickly Jeff had shifted into co-parent mode, assuming a partnership that had never existed between us when it came to raising Abby. How are you planning to be part of her life, Jeff? I asked directly. She's in college here, but her home is still in Seattle, with me. I'm figuring that out, he admitted. Right now, I just want to get to know her, to understand who she is, The practicalities of a long-distance relationship can be worked out. And what about your company? Your life here? The Jeff Taylor I knew didn't have time for family between board meetings and expansion plans. The Jeff Taylor you knew was younger, more driven by external validation and frankly more selfish. He turned to face me fully. I'm not that man anymore, Heather. Taylor Tech is established now. I have a strong executive team, competent leadership across divisions. I have the luxury of time and attention that I didn't have or didn't make 19 years ago. I hope that's true, I said softly, for Abby's sake. And for yours? He asked, an unexpected vulnerability in his question. My sake doesn't enter into it. My only concern is our daughter. He studied me for a long moment. Are you happy, Heather? In Seattle, with your design business, your life there? The question caught me off guard. Yes. I've built something I'm proud of. A career, a home, a community. Why? Just curious. He looked away again. I wondered sometimes over the years what happened to you after you left Boston. Whether you'd remarried, had more children. I didn't, I answered simply. My focus was on Abby and my career. Dating was complicated with a young child and never a priority. You didn't trust men after me, he observed, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp when they met mine again. I didn't trust myself, I corrected. My judgment. I fell so hard and fast for you, Jeff, and look how that turned out. The car pulled up to my hotel before he could respond, saving us both from a conversation neither of us was ready for. I'll call you tomorrow, he said as I gathered my purse. We should talk about next steps, how to navigate this new reality. All right. I paused, then added, Abby has parents' weekend next month. My parents are coming. You might want to meet them. They're Abby's family, too. I'd like that, he replied, genuine interest in his voice. Very much. As I watched the car pull away, I realized how thoroughly my carefully constructed life had been upended in just a few days. The wall I'd built between my past and present had not just cracked, it had completely collapsed, leaving me to figure out how to integrate 2 decades that had never been meant to intersect. One DNA test, uploaded on a whim for a college project, had rewritten all our futures in ways none of us could have predicted. If you've ever had your past come back to challenge your carefully constructed present, hit that like button. And subscribe now to discover what happens when Abby's newfound Taylor identity begins to change her in ways Heather never anticipated. And Jeff faces a family crisis that forces him to choose between the daughter he's just discovered and the legacy he's spent his life building. The weeks following the Taylor family dinner took on a surreal quality. After 19 years of carefully constructed distance from my past, Jeff Taylor was suddenly a regular presence in my life. Or more accurately, in Abby's life. He'd insisted I extend my stay in Boston, arranging for my hotel accommodations for as long as necessary to help Abby adjust to her new family reality. My first instinct had been to refuse, to maintain the independence I'd cultivated for nearly 2 decades. But Abby had asked me to stay, her eyes betraying a vulnerability I rarely saw in my self-assured daughter. Just until Thanksgiving break, she'd said. Then we can both fly home to Seattle for the holiday. So I'd called Grace, my assistant, and arranged to work remotely, managing my design firm through video calls and delegated site visits. Jeff had offered me a temporary office at Taylor Tower, an overture I'd politely declined, preferring the neutrality of my hotel business center. It was strange watching Jeff and Abby develop their relationship. He approached fatherhood with the same focused intensity he brought to business, scheduling regular appointments with her between her classes and study sessions, learning her preferences, her habits, her dreams. He never pushed, never demanded, but made himself consistently available in a way that surprised me. He's different than I expected, I admitted to Lisa over coffee, 2 weeks after the family dinner. Jeff's sister had reached out, suggesting we reconnect while I remained in Boston. More patient, less domineering. Lisa stirred her latte thoughtfully. Jeff did a lot of work on himself after you left. The divorce, then Lauren's betrayal a year later, it hit him harder than he let anyone see. He threw himself into Taylor Tech for a while, became exactly what everyone feared. All business, no heart. Then about 5 years ago, something changed. What happened? I couldn't help being curious about the years I'd missed, the evolution of the man who was now co-parenting our daughter. Burnout, basically. He collapsed during a board meeting. Exhaustion, the doctors said. Dad had just had his second heart attack, and Jeff was trying to run everything himself. After that, he started reevaluating. Brought in stronger executives, delegated more, took actual vacations. She smiled slightly. He even tried therapy, though he'd probably kill me for telling you that. Jeff Taylor in therapy, I mused, trying to imagine the proud, self-sufficient man I'd known submitting to such vulnerability. I wouldn't have believed it. People change, Heather. Sometimes because they want to. Sometimes because they have no choice. Lisa's expression grew serious. Finding out about Abby, it's like watching pieces of a puzzle finally fit together for him. The missing piece of his life he couldn't identify. I'm glad, I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. Whatever justified anger I still harbored about our past, seeing Jeff connect with Abby brought a complicated joy I hadn't expected. Abby deserves to know her father. And Jeff deserves to know his daughter, Lisa added gently. Though I understand why you did what you did. Do you? I challenged. Your family made it pretty clear I was never good enough for the Taylor name. And Jeff made it abundantly clear that family complications weren't in his 5-year plan. Jeff said terrible things during your divorce that he's regretted for years, Lisa acknowledged. But yes, I do understand protecting your child from potential rejection or inconsistent parenting. Jeff wasn't ready to be a father then. The question is whether you're ready to let him be a father now. Her perceptiveness made me uncomfortable. Abby's an adult. It's her choice to have a relationship with Jeff. And with the rest of us? The extended Taylor clan that apparently keeps showing up in her DNA matches? Lisa's smile softened her words. Sharon may be a nightmare, but there are cousins, aunts, uncles who would love to know Abby, who could enrich her life. Or complicate it, I countered. Sharon's already talking about trust funds and the Taylor legacy. Ben's got her analyzing genetic traits she never knew she had. Parker's showing her the Boston social scene. It's overwhelming. It's family, Lisa said simply. Messy, complicated, intrusive, and sometimes wonderful. Abby deserves the chance to decide for herself what parts she wants to embrace. I couldn't argue with that, though watching Abby navigate the Taylor family waters filled me with both pride and trepidation. She was handling it all with remarkable poise, accepting Sharon's invitations to proper Taylor experiences, symphony performances, museum galas, charity luncheons, while maintaining firm boundaries around her studies and existing friendships. Jeff, to his credit, seemed aware of his mother's attempts to absorb Abby into the Taylor orbit. More than once, he'd intervened when Sharon's plans became too demanding, reminding her that Abby was a college student with midterms and a life of her own. Grandmother wants me to join the junior league, Abby told me one evening as we shared takeout in my hotel room. She says it's essential for proper Boston connections and that I should start thinking about internships at suitable companies. And what did you say? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral despite my internal eye roll at Sharon's predictability. That I'd think about it after midterms, which bought me about 3 weeks. Abby grinned, snagging another spring roll. Parker says the standard response to Sharon's suggestions is, I'll consider it, which she hears as, yes, but gives you plausible deniability when you inevitably disappoint her. Parker seems to have the Taylor family dynamics well mapped, I observed, relieved that Abby had found an ally in Jeff's nephew. He's great. Completely unimpressed by the whole Taylor machine. Says his goal in life is to do just well enough to avoid being completely cut off but badly enough to never be given actual responsibilities. Her expression turned thoughtful. Dad says Parker reminds him of Uncle Mark when he was younger. Dad. The word still gave me pause every time Abby used it, though she'd transitioned to calling Jeff that with surprising ease. Another change I was adjusting to, Jeff was no longer my father or Jeff in her conversations, but simply Dad, as though he'd held that role her entire life rather than just the past few weeks. Speaking of your dad, how are the sailing lessons going? Jeff had made good on his offer to teach Abby, taking her out on his sailboat on weekends when her study schedule permitted. Amazing. Her face lit up. I can't believe you never let me try it before. I'm a natural. Dad says I have good instincts for reading the wind. I tamped down the irrational twinge of jealousy at her enthusiasm. Of course she loved sailing. She was half Taylor after all. The sea was in her blood through generations of shipping merchants before the family transitioned to technology. I'm glad you're enjoying it, I said sincerely. And your studies? Still keeping up with everything despite the Taylor social calendar? Mostly. She pushed her food around on her plate, suddenly avoiding my gaze. Actually, I've been thinking about my major. What about it? I asked, a note of caution entering my voice. Abby had been passionate about environmental science since high school, her path seemingly clear. I'm considering adding a second major in computer science or maybe switching entirely. Ben's been showing me some of the work they're doing with genetic algorithms and environmental modeling at Taylor Tech. It's fascinating, Mom, using AI to predict climate impacts and develop targeted solutions. That does sound interesting, I said carefully. But you've never mentioned computer science before. Are you sure this sudden interest isn't about, connecting with your father's world? Her eyes flashed defensively. Why does it have to be one or the other? Maybe I'm genuinely interested and it connects me to Dad. Is that so wrong? Of course not, sweetheart. I just want to make sure you're making choices for the right reasons. College is a time for exploration, but also for building toward the future you want, not the one others expect of you. You mean not the one the Taylors expect, she translated accurately. Mom, I get that you're worried about their influence, but I'm not suddenly going to become someone else just because I found out I'm a Taylor. But she already was becoming someone else, or perhaps more accurately, uncovering parts of herself that had always been there but never fully expressed. The analytical precision, the strategic thinking, the competitive drive, traits I'd attributed to her unique personality, now revealed themselves as Taylor inheritance. I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. I trust you, Abby. I just want you to be happy. I am happy. Her expression softened. Confused sometimes, overwhelmed often, but also, I don't know, more complete. Like I finally understand parts of myself that never made sense before. As October turned to November, my extended Boston stay began to strain my business arrangements back in Seattle. 2 major clients needed on-site consultations I couldn't delegate, and my remote work setup, while functional, wasn't sustainable long-term. I need to go back to Seattle next week, I told Abby over our now regular Sunday brunch. At least for a few days to handle some client matters. Then I can come back until Thanksgiving if you want. She nodded, surprisingly untroubled by the news. That makes sense. I'm swamped with midterms anyway, and Dad's taking me to New York next weekend to see his satellite office and meet some of his tech development team. The casual mention of a father-daughter trip I hadn't been consulted about caught me off guard. New York? When was this arranged? Last week. It's just Friday to Sunday. I won't miss any classes. She must have read something in my expression because she added, I was going to tell you. It just came up when Dad was showing me some of the environmental applications they're developing. Of course, I said, masking my hurt at being an afterthought. It sounds like a great opportunity. You could come too, she offered, though without much conviction. If you want. No, that's okay. It should be your time with your dad. I forced a smile. Besides, I'll be in Seattle catching up on work. Later that day, I found myself alone with Jeff in his office, having agreed to meet to discuss logistics before my departure. The space was quintessentially him, orderly, modern, with touches of nautical inspiration in the artwork and color scheme. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered commanding views of Boston Harbor, a physical manifestation of the Taylor prosperity that had always made me feel slightly out of place. Abby mentioned you're taking her to New York next weekend, I said after we'd covered the practical matters of my Seattle trip. Yes, I thought she might enjoy seeing some of our R&D work, especially the environmental technology division. She's showing real interest in the technical applications of environmental science. He studied me carefully. I should have mentioned it to you first. I'm still learning the co-parenting protocols here. She's 18. Technically, neither of us needs permission for trips with her. I kept my tone neutral. It just caught me by surprise. Heather. Jeff leaned forward, his expression serious. I'm not trying to cut you out or take over. I know these past weeks haven't been easy for you, watching Abby discover her Taylor connections. It's fine. She deserves to know that side of her family. But, he prompted, reading between the lines with the perceptiveness that had always been one of his strengths. But nothing. It's an adjustment, that's all. For 18 years, it's been just Abby and me. Now there's you and Sharon. And the entire Taylor dynasty with their trust funds and legacy talk and expectations. I met his gaze directly. I worry about her getting lost in all of that. Or worse, feeling like she has to choose between our worlds. I would never ask her to choose, Jeff said quietly. I hope you know that. Intentions and reality don't always align, Jeff. Your mother makes her preferences pretty clear at every opportunity. My mother is my problem to manage, not Abby's, and certainly not yours. He ran a hand through his hair, that familiar gesture of frustration. Look, while you're in Seattle, why don't I come up for a day or two after our New York trip? See Abby's other home, get a sense of the life you've built there. It might help me understand better. The suggestion startled me. You want to come to Seattle? Why not? Abby talks about it constantly, her high school, the tennis courts where she trained, the lake where you taught her to swim. It's half of who she is, Heather. I want to know all of her, not just the parts that fit into my world here. His sincerity caught me off guard, as did the genuine interest in understanding Abby's life beyond Boston. It was another example of how this Jeff differed from the man I'd known, more reflective, more aware of perspectives beyond his own. All right, I agreed cautiously. That might be good for Abby, to see that you value her whole life, not just the Taylor parts. And maybe good for us too, he added, his voice careful. To establish some kind of working relationship as her parents. We're going to be connected through Abby for the rest of our lives, Heather. Finding a comfortable way to navigate that seems important. He was right, of course. Whatever our past, Abby's discovery had linked us permanently in a way neither of us had anticipated. Learning to coexist, perhaps even cooperate, was the only sensible path forward. I'll text you my address, I said, standing to leave. Let me know your flight details when you have them. Returning to Seattle felt both comforting and strange, as though I was visiting my own life rather than living it. I moved through my routines, morning coffee on the deck overlooking Lake Washington, client meetings, dinner with friends who'd been curious about my extended Boston stay, with an odd sense of detachment. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, and yet nothing felt the same. My house. Once my pride and joy with its carefully curated design elements and personal touches now seemed to be missing something essential. The framed photos of Abby that lined the hallway told only half her story, her Taylor half conspicuously absent from the visual narrative of her life. I found myself wondering what Jeff would think of our home. Would he see it as modest compared to Taylor standards? Or would he recognize the careful design choices, the quality over quantity, the emphasis on comfort and light that had guided my renovations of the 1920s lakefront cottage? These thoughts unsettled me. Jeff's opinion of my life shouldn't matter, hadn't mattered for 19 years. Yet now I found myself seeing my home, my career, even my parenting through the lens of his potential judgment. You're overthinking this, my mother said when I called to update her on the situation. Jeff isn't coming to inspect your life for adequacy. He's coming to see where his daughter grew up. I know that rationally, I admitted. But there's nothing rational about any of this, Mom. 3 weeks ago, Jeff didn't know Abby existed. Now he's integrated himself into her life like he's been there all along. And that bothers you. Of course it bothers me. I've been her only parent for 18 years. I've been everything to her, mother, father, provider, protector, and now Jeff swoops in with his billions and his sailing lessons and his Taylor tech opportunities, and suddenly I'm... What? The supporting character in Abby's story? My mother was quiet for a moment. Heather, is this really about Abby? Or is it about you and Jeff? What do you mean? I mean that you and Jeff had an intense relationship that ended painfully. You've spent nearly 2 decades convincing yourself he was a self-centered workaholic who wouldn't have been a good father. Now you're faced with evidence that he might actually be a pretty good dad, and that's forcing you to question the narrative you've constructed. Her assessment hit uncomfortably close to home. I'm not questioning that keeping Abby from him was wrong, I said defensively. I've acknowledged that multiple times. I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm talking about the story you told yourself to make peace with your choice. If Jeff turns out to be a loving, attentive father who puts Abby first, what does that say about the past 18 years? That I robbed them both of a relationship they should have had, I whispered, the guilt I'd been suppressing rising to the surface. Or that people change, my mother countered gently. The Jeff Taylor you left might not have been ready for fatherhood. The Jeff Taylor who exists now might be. Both things can be true without invalidating your choices. Her words stayed with me as I prepared for Jeff's visit, finding a strange comfort in the possibility that we had both changed, evolved into people who could perhaps forge a new kind of relationship based on their shared love for their daughter. Jeff arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, having taken Abby back to Boston after their New York weekend before flying to Seattle. I'd offered to pick him up at the airport, but he'd declined. Arriving at my door in a rental car with the self-assured navigation of someone accustomed to finding his way in unfamiliar cities. "Your home is beautiful," he said, after I'd given him the brief tour. He stood in my living room, taking in the wall of windows overlooking the lake, the thoughtful blend of modern and vintage elements that defined my design aesthetic. "It suits you, warm, inviting, but with clean lines and purposeful spaces. I can see why Abby loves it here." "Thank you," I replied, oddly touched by his genuine appreciation. "It's been a labor of love. I bought it when Abby was 3, when my business was just taking off. It was a disaster then, leaking roof, ancient plumbing, floors damaged beyond repair. But the bones were good, and the location," I gestured to the lake view. "Worth the investment," he finished for me. "You always had an eye for potential, even back when we met. You saw possibilities in spaces others had written off." The unexpected reference to our past made me pause. We'd been carefully avoiding direct mentions of our relationship, focusing instead on Abby and present arrangements. "Would you like some coffee? Or something stronger?" I offered, seeking the safety of host protocols. "Coffee would be great. Then maybe you could show me some of Abby's favorite places? She mentioned a park where you used to take her sailing lessons. The acceptable kind, apparently, in small boats tethered to docks." His smile held no judgment, only amusement at Abby's description. "Green Lake Park," I confirmed. "She took sailing lessons there in middle school, small craft only, with instructors and safety boats nearby. Very different from open water sailing on Boston Harbor." "But still sailing," he noted. "Still drawn to the water despite your reservations." I hadn't thought of it that way before. How even in my attempts to protect Abby from connections to her Taylor heritage, certain proclivities had emerged naturally. Her love of water, her competitive drive, her methodical approach to problem-solving, all traits she shared with Jeff, genetically embedded despite my efforts to shape a different narrative. We spent the afternoon visiting Abby's landmarks, her high school with its championship tennis courts, the local cafe where she'd held her first part-time job, the community center where she'd volunteered teaching environmental science to elementary students. Jeff absorbed it all with genuine interest, asking questions that revealed his desire to understand the daughter he'd missed knowing. "She had a good childhood here," he said as we walked along Green Lake, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the water. "You created a wonderful life for her, Heather. I need you to know I see that, and I'm grateful for it." "She made it easy," I replied, the familiar refrain whenever anyone complimented my parenting. "Abby's always been special, determined, focused, compassionate." "Like her mother," Jeff observed quietly. I glanced at him, surprised by the compliment. "And her father. The determination, at least, and the focus, the compassion. That wasn't always your strongest trait, as I recall." He winced slightly. I deserved that. I wasn't very compassionate during our divorce, or in the months leading up to it. Success was my sole metric for happiness then. Professional accomplishments, market domination, beating competitors. It took losing you, then nearly losing everything else that mattered, to understand how empty that kind of success can be. "What do you mean, nearly losing everything?" I asked, curious despite myself. Jeff was quiet for a moment, as though debating how much to share. "About 5 years ago, I pushed myself to the breaking point, working 20-hour days, micromanaging every aspect of Taylor Tech, trying to handle my father's health crisis and the company's global expansion simultaneously. I collapsed during a board meeting, complete physical shutdown. The doctors called it extreme exhaustion, but it was more than that. It was a spiritual emptiness, a hollowness at the core of everything I'd built." "Lisa mentioned something about that," I admitted. "She said it changed you." "It forced me to reevaluate everything. I took a 3-month sabbatical, the first real break I'd had since college. Spent time sailing, thinking, reading philosophy instead of business strategies for the first time in years." He smiled ruefully. "I even tried therapy, though I'd deny it if you quoted me." "Your secret's safe with me," I assured him, returning his smile. "So what changed? Besides taking actual vacations?" I started asking different questions. Not, how can Taylor Tech dominate the market? But, how can our technology improve lives? Not, what will impress the board? But, what would make me proud of my legacy? He looked out across the lake, his expression reflective. "I realized I'd built an empire, but had no one to share it with, no purpose beyond accumulation and expansion. And now?" I asked softly. "Now I have a daughter I never knew existed. A brilliant, beautiful young woman who carries my DNA but your values, who challenges me to be better, to think beyond quarterly reports and market share." He turned to face me directly. "And I have you back in my life, in whatever limited capacity, reminding me of the man I once wanted to be before ambition consumed everything else." The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This vulnerability, this willingness to acknowledge weakness and failure, was so unlike the Jeff I'd known that for a moment I felt disoriented, as though speaking to a familiar stranger. "I'm not the same person either," I offered, feeling a reciprocal honesty was required. Raising Abby alone, building my business from nothing, it changed me too, made me more self-sufficient, more cautious, more protective of what matters. Too protective, perhaps, he suggested gently. At least when it came to telling her the truth about me. I couldn't deny it. Yes, I was protecting her, but I was also protecting myself. From your rejection, from your family's judgment, from having to share her with the world that had hurt me so deeply. And now? He stepped closer, his gaze intent. "What are you protecting yourself from now, Heather?" The question penetrated defenses I hadn't realized I'd erected. What was I protecting myself from? The possibility that Abby might choose a life in Boston over returning to Seattle? The fear that the Taylor influence would change her in ways I couldn't control? Or something more personal, the unsettling awareness that Jeff Taylor still affected me in ways I'd thought long buried? "I don't know," I admitted finally. "Everything feels uncertain right now. Abby's exploring her Taylor identity, you're establishing a relationship with her, Sharon's plotting her social debut into Boston society, and I'm just trying to make sure she doesn't lose herself in the process." "Or lose you," Jeff added perceptively. "That's what you're really afraid of, isn't it? That she'll choose the Taylors over you? Wouldn't you be afraid of that, if the situations were reversed?" I challenged. "If Abby had grown up with you in Boston and suddenly discovered a mother and an entirely different life in Seattle?" "Terrified," he acknowledged without hesitation. "But I'd also have to trust that the foundation I'd built with her was strong enough to withstand new discoveries. Do you trust what you've created with Abby?" Did I? The question resonated deeply. Abby and I had always been extraordinarily close, our bond forged through years of just the two of us against the world. But that dynamic was shifting now, expanding to include Jeff and the entire Taylor ecosystem. Could our relationship adapt to this new reality without fundamental damage? "I'm trying to," I answered honestly. "It's a work in progress." Jeff nodded, accepting the incomplete answer. For what it's worth, she talks about you constantly. Your strength, your creativity, your unwavering support through everything. The Taylors might offer her connections and opportunities, but you gave her something far more valuable. Unconditional love and a sense of self-worth that has nothing to do with achievement or status. His words eased something tight in my chest. Thank you for saying that. It helps. Hearing it from you. We continued our walk around the lake, the conversation shifting to more practical matters, Abby's upcoming Thanksgiving break, her evolving academic interests, the logistics of maintaining connections between Seattle and Boston. As the sun began to set, casting the water in shades of gold and pink, I found myself relaxing into a companionable rhythm with Jeff that echoed our earliest days together, before success and expectations had complicated everything. Back at my house, I prepared a simple dinner while Jeff took business calls on my deck, his commanding presence somehow not out of place in my modest home. We ate by candlelight, sharing stories about Abby that filled in gaps for both of us, his understanding of her childhood enriched by my memories, my vision of her future expanded by his insights into opportunities I'd never considered. She's considering Taylor Tech's summer internship program, Jeff mentioned as we cleared the dishes together. In the Environmental Technologies division, Ben's been showing her some of their current projects. Is that appropriate? Nepotism isn't usually looked upon favorably in corporate settings, I pointed out, remembering the Jeff who had insisted on meritocracy above all else in his company culture. She'd have to apply through proper channels, be evaluated on her qualifications like anyone else, he assured me. But the connection to environmental science combined with data analytics would be valuable experience, regardless of her ultimate career path. I nodded, acknowledging the logic while still feeling a twinge of concern about Abby being drawn further into the Taylor orbit. Just make sure she knows she has options beyond Taylor Tech, that her path doesn't have to follow yours. Of course. He leaned against my kitchen counter, studying me with those perceptive blue eyes. I'm not trying to mold her into a mini CEO, Heather. I just want to support her interests, wherever they lead. I know, I'm being overprotective again. I sighed, setting down the dish towel. Old habits. Understandable habits, he corrected gently. You've been her sole protector for 18 years. That doesn't change overnight. His understanding disarmed me, as did his next question. Would you consider spending Christmas in Boston? You and your parents? We could all be together for Abby's first holiday knowing her complete family. The invitation, its casualness belying its significance, took me by surprise. That's generous of you. But Christmas in Boston would mean the full Taylor experience, wouldn't it? Sharon's formal dinner, the family traditions, the society obligations? Some of that, yes, he admitted. But we could create our own traditions, too. Blend the best of both worlds for Abby's sake. For Abby's sake. The phrase had become our shared mantra, the justification for compromises neither of us might otherwise make. I'll think about it, I promised, and discuss it with my parents. Later, after Jeff had returned to his hotel with plans to fly back to Boston the following afternoon, I sat alone on my deck, watching moonlight ripple across the lake. My conversation with Jeff kept replaying in my mind, not just the practical discussions about Abby's future, but the moments of genuine connection, the glimpses of the man he'd become in our years apart. Was it possible to build something new from the ashes of our past? Not romance, that bridge had been thoroughly burned, but a partnership of sorts, a co-parenting relationship that transcended old hurts and disappointments. For Abby's sake, I wanted to believe it was possible. For my own sake, I wasn't sure I was brave enough to find out. Thanksgiving arrived with unexpected complications. What had been planned as Abby's first visit back to Seattle since the DNA revelation was now expanded to include Jeff, who had invited himself with Abby's enthusiastic endorsement. My parents, eager to meet their granddaughter's newfound father, had welcomed the addition with typical Midwestern hospitality. It'll be fine, Heather, my mother assured me as we prepared the turkey on Thanksgiving morning. Jeff seems to understand he's entering our territory here. He brought very nice wine, complimented your father's historical book collection, and hasn't once checked his phone during conversation. I'd call that promising behavior from a tech CEO. He's on his best behavior because he wants to make a good impression, I countered, aggressively crimping pie crust. This is all part of his campaign to be world's most dedicated father, making up for lost time. Or perhaps he's genuinely trying to connect with the family of his daughter, my father suggested mildly, entering the kitchen in search of coffee. Not everything has an ulterior motive, Heather. My parents' easy acceptance of Jeff grated on nerves already frayed by the strange intimacy of sharing a holiday with my ex-husband. They hadn't been there for the painful dissolution of our marriage, hadn't witnessed his callous prioritization of work over relationship, hadn't heard him declare that family complications weren't in his 5-year plan. But they were right about one thing. The Jeff who sat in my living room discussing historical biographies with my father while Abby napped on the couch was demonstrating none of those past behaviors. He was present, engaged, genuinely interested in my parents' lives and opinions. He asked thoughtful questions about their careers, listened attentively to my father's stories about teaching history to disinterested teenagers, and expressed sincere admiration for my mother's work modernizing the local library system. He's nothing like I expected, my mother confided as we set the dining table. From the way you described him, I thought he'd be cold, calculating, constantly distracted by business concerns. He was, once, I admitted. Or maybe I only saw that side of him toward the end, when Taylor Tech consumed everything. People change, Heather, sometimes dramatically. Your father was a workaholic our first few years of marriage, missed anniversaries, worked through vacations, the whole cliché. It took time and communication for him to find balance. Jeff and I didn't have time, I said softly. By the time I realized how unhappy I was, he was already involved with Lauren, and then the divorce, and finding out about Abby. There was no path back from that. Perhaps not back, my mother agreed, but forward. That path seems to be forming whether you planned for it or not. Thanksgiving dinner itself was surprisingly pleasant, Abby bridging any conversational gaps with enthusiastic stories about her Boston experiences, Jeff adding context where needed but never dominating the discussion. My parents shared embarrassing childhood anecdotes about me that made Abby laugh uncontrollably, and Jeff watched me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, something between amusement and regret. After dinner, as my parents insisted on handling cleanup while Abby showed Jeff her childhood photo albums, I escaped to the deck for a moment of solitude. The November air was chilly but refreshing after the emotional complexity of the day. "Mind if I join you?" Jeff's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him holding 2 glasses of wine, offering one to me. "Sure, though it's getting cold out here." "I don't mind the cold. Boston winters build character, or so my mother always claimed." He handed me a glass and leaned against the railing, looking out at the darkened lake. "Your parents are wonderful people, Heather. I see where you get your warmth, your intellectual curiosity, your quiet strength." "They like you too," I admitted. "Though they're easily charmed." "Not according to Abby. She says your father terrified her high school boyfriends with his historical knowledge of warfare tactics, and your mother can read people like books, then shelve them in their proper categories." I laughed, despite myself. "That sounds like them." Dad never actually interfered with Abby's dating, but his casual mentions of medieval torture methods during dinner conversation were surprisingly effective deterrents. "I wish I'd been there for that," Jeff said softly, the humor fading from his voice. "For all of it, her first steps, first words, first heartbreaks, I missed so much, Heather." The raw regret in his tone touched something in me. "I'm sorry for that," I said sincerely. "Whatever my justifications, I was wrong to keep her from you, to not give you the chance to be her father. And I was wrong to make you believe I wouldn't want to be." He turned to face me fully. The things I said during our divorce about complications, about priorities, they were the words of a frightened man who thought success meant control, achievement, empire building. Who didn't understand that real success is measured in relationships, in love given and received, in positive impact on others' lives. "When did you become so philosophical?" I asked, trying to lighten the moment. "Somewhere between collapsing in a board meeting and waking up in a hospital bed with no one listed as my emergency contact," he replied with unexpected candor. Nothing clarifies priorities quite like realizing you've built an empire that would continue without missing a beat if you disappeared tomorrow. The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. Jeff, I'm not telling you this for sympathy, he interrupted gently. Just context. Finding out about Abby, it was a shock, yes, and initially I was furious with you, but it was also a gift I never expected. A chance to connect with something more meaningful than quarterly earnings or stock valuations. A chance to matter to someone as a person, not as a CEO or a tailor. She adores you, I acknowledged. I can see it every time she talks about you, about the sailing lessons, the tailor tech tours, even the family dinner from hell with Sharon. He laughed. That dinner was something, wasn't it? My mother in full matriarchal glory, staking her claim on the newest Taylor heir. While pointedly excluding me, I reminded him, though without real heat. A tactical error on her part, Jeff noted. Abby made it very clear afterward that any future family gatherings would include you or she wouldn't attend. She's got the Taylor stubbornness, but your sense of loyalty. The thought of Abby defending me to Sharon brought a warm glow that counteracted the November chill. She's always been fiercely protective of the people she loves. It's one of her best qualities. One of many, Jeff agreed. He hesitated, then added, She told me she's decided to stay in Boston for winter break, other than coming home for Christmas week. Ben's offered to let her shadow him at the genetics lab, and she wants to attend some lectures at MIT about environmental data modeling. The news, while not entirely unexpected, still stung. Winter break had always been our special time. 2 uninterrupted weeks of mother-daughter adventures, holiday traditions, and lazy days in pajamas watching classic movies. I see, I said carefully. That sounds like a valuable opportunity for her. She's worried about telling you, afraid you'll feel she's choosing the Taylors over you. Jeff's perception was uncomfortably accurate. I told her you'd understand, that you've always supported her growth and interests, even when they took her in unexpected directions. Of course I understand, I said automatically, the good mother response overriding my actual feelings. She should take advantage of these opportunities. That's why she's in college, to explore, to discover new paths. Jeff studied me for a long moment. It's okay to be disappointed, Heather, to want more time with her. I feel the same way about the 18 years I missed. But the reality is she's building a life that incorporates both of us now, along with extended family, academic interests, new friends. Our job is to support that expansion, not resist it. When did you get so wise about parenting? I asked, only half joking. I've been reading books, he admitted with a slight smile, about late-stage parenting, supporting adult children, healthy boundaries, the basics I should have learned years ago. The image of Jeff Taylor, Boston's most formidable CEO, reading parenting books to better understand his newly discovered adult daughter, was oddly endearing. It spoke to a humility, a willingness to learn and grow that the Jeff I'd known had often lacked. We're both figuring this out as we go, I offered. There's no manual for our specific situation. No, he agreed. But we're doing all right, don't you think? For 2 people who couldn't communicate effectively 19 years ago, we've managed some productive co-parenting these past 2 months. He was right. Despite the awkwardness, the old hurts, the new complications, Jeff and I had found a way to prioritize Abby's needs above our own discomfort. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional, perhaps even evolving into something resembling a friendship. We have, I acknowledged. Though the real test will be Christmas with your mother. If we survive Sharon's formal dinner without incident, we'll have achieved co-parenting nirvana. Jeff laughed, the sound warming the chilly air between us. I'll run interference. Consider it my Christmas gift to you. I'll hold you to that, I warned, but I was smiling too. As we stood there on my deck, the distance between us seemed both vast and insignificant. 19 years of separate lives creating a gulf that our shared love for Abby was slowly bridging, not erasing the past, but creating the possibility of a different kind of future. The weeks following Thanksgiving brought new developments. Abby formally declared a double major in environmental science and computer science, a decision I supported despite recognizing the Taylor influence behind it. Jeff arranged for my parents to stay at his Beacon Hill home for our Christmas visit, a gesture of inclusion that surprised and touched me. And most significantly, Sharon Taylor invited me to tea, just the two of us, an overture so unexpected I initially suspected an ulterior motive. "She's trying," Jeff explained when I called him about the invitation. "In her Sharon way, Abby's made it clear that you're a non-negotiable part of her life, which means my mother has to adapt or risk losing access to her only granddaughter. So it's strategic acceptance, not genuine reconciliation," I noted dryly. "With Sharon, strategic acceptance is the first step. Genuine anything comes much later, if at all." His tone was affectionate despite the criticism. "But I think you should go. If nothing else, it signals your willingness to be civil for Abby's sake." He was right, of course. So I found myself on a crisp December afternoon, seated in Sharon Taylor's formal parlor, being served Earl Grey in delicate porcelain cups that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "Thank you for coming, Heather," Sharon began, her perfect posture and calculated smile unchanged from 19 years earlier. "I thought it important that we establish some understanding between us, given Abigail's connection to both our lives." "I appreciate the invitation," I replied neutrally. "Abby's happiness is my priority, and that includes healthy relationships with her extended family." Sharon nodded approvingly. "Precisely. While we may have had our differences in the past, those should not impact Abigail's integration into the Taylor family circle." Integration. Such a clinical term for what was essentially Sharon's ongoing campaign to absorb Abby into the Taylor dynasty. "Abby is her own person," I said carefully. "She'll decide for herself how much integration she wants with any part of her family, Taylor or Ryan." "Of course," Sharon agreed smoothly. "But surely you recognize the advantages the Taylor connection offers her. Educational opportunities, social networks, financial security, all resources that will benefit her future." "Abby has never lacked for any of those things," I countered, keeping my voice level despite the implied criticism. "She earned a merit scholarship to Northeastern, has built her own social connections, and has a college fund that will see her through graduate school if she chooses that path." "Admirable," Sharon acknowledged with the faintest hint of condescension. "But the Taylor resources are of a different magnitude. The family trust alone would ensure Abigail never needs to concern herself with financial matters. Which might be precisely why I'd prefer she does concern herself with those matters," I replied. "Independence, self-reliance, understanding the value of earned success, these are values I've tried to instill in Abby. Values that unlimited access to Taylor wealth might undermine." Sharon studied me over the rim of her teacup, reassessing. "You've raised a remarkable young woman, Heather. Principled, intelligent, poised. Whatever our past disagreements, I can acknowledge that achievement." The compliment, unexpected and seemingly genuine, caught me off guard. "Thank you." "However," Sharon continued, setting down her cup with precision, "Abigail is a Taylor by blood. That comes with certain expectations, responsibilities to the family name and legacy." And there it was, the true purpose of this tea, setting terms for Abby's Taylor inheritance, both literal and figurative. "Abby will make her own choices about what responsibilities she takes on," I stated firmly. "Jeff understands and respects that. I hope you will, too." "Jeffrey has always been somewhat resistant to family tradition," Sharon observed with a slight frown. "But tradition has its purpose, Heather. Structure, continuity, a sense of belonging to something greater than oneself. These are gifts we can offer Abigail that go beyond financial advantage." I considered her words, searching for the manipulation, but finding instead a hint of genuine belief. Sharon truly valued the Taylor legacy, saw it as something precious to be preserved and passed down. Her methods might be controlling, her worldview elitist, but her commitment to family continuity was, in its way, as fierce as my own protection of Abby. "Abby already belongs to something greater than herself," I said finally. "She belongs to a community of people who love her for who she is, not for her genetic connection to a family name. That includes you and the Taylors now, but it also includes my parents, her friends in Seattle, the mentors who've supported her journey. And you, Sharon added, surprising me again. Most significantly you, her mother. I do recognize that bond, Heather, whatever you might think of me. I may not approve of how you kept her from us, but I cannot fault the results of your parenting. It was as close to a peace offering as Sharon Taylor was likely to provide, acknowledging my role while maintaining her disapproval of my choices. In the complex calculation of our new family dynamic, it represented progress, however limited. For Abby's sake, I'm willing to work toward a civil relationship, I offered. To find ways for her to benefit from both her Taylor and Ryan heritage without forcing her to choose between worlds that should complement rather than compete. A reasonable objective. Sharon's lips curved in what might almost be described as a genuine smile. Perhaps we understand each other better than either of us expected. As I left Sharon's home that afternoon, I felt a strange sense of accomplishment. Not friendship, certainly, and not even true acceptance, but a negotiated peace that might allow Abby to navigate her expanded family without constant tension between her mother and grandmother. Is forgiveness possible after decades of secrets and separation? Can a family fractured by the past find healing through a new generation? Hit that like button if you believe in the power of reconciliation, and subscribe to hear the dramatic conclusion of how one DNA test changed 3 lives forever. Christmas with the Taylors proved less intimidating than I'd anticipated. My parents' genuine warmth seemed to disarm even Sharon, who found herself engaged in lengthy conversations with my father about historical preservation efforts in Boston and Iowa. Abby blossomed in this merged family setting, delighting in introducing her Iowa grandparents to her Taylor relatives, finding connections and commonalities no one had expected. Jeff, true to his word, ran interference whenever Sharon's controlling tendencies emerged, smoothly redirecting conversations or creating distractions that preserved the holiday peace. His home, which I'd never seen during our marriage, he'd purchased it after our divorce, reflected the man he'd become, tasteful but not ostentatious, with comfortable spaces designed for conversation rather than impression. "You've created a real home here," I observed Christmas Eve, as we found ourselves momentarily alone in his kitchen while the others gathered in the living room for my father's traditional reading of A Christmas Carol. "I had help," Jeff admitted. "A very talented designer consulted on the renovation. You might know her work, Heather Ryan Designs?" I stared at him in surprise. "You hired my firm? When?" "3 years ago, when I bought this place. I saw your company featured in Architectural Digest, that sustainable luxury project in Portland, and recognized your aesthetic immediately. Your associate Grace handled everything. I specifically requested she not mention who the client was." "Grace never said a word," I marveled, looking around with new eyes at design elements I now recognized as my firm's signature touches. "Why would you hire my company without telling me?" Jeff looked almost embarrassed. "It felt like a connection, I suppose, a way of having something of you in my life when I thought I'd lost that possibility forever." He shrugged, uncharacteristically self-conscious. "Or maybe I just always respected your eye for design, even when I was too focused on other things to say it." The revelation touched me in unexpected ways, that Jeff had followed my career, appreciated my work enough to bring it into his most personal space. It suggested a level of reflection, perhaps even regret, that I hadn't allowed myself to consider. "It's beautiful," I said sincerely. "Grace did our firm proud." "The designer's vision was exceptional," he countered, "even filtered through an associate." The moment held a strange intimacy, acknowledgement of connections that had persisted despite years of separation, of mutual respect that had somehow survived the bitterness of our divorce. It was Abby who interrupted, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "Dad, Grandpa's about to start reading. You're missing the tradition." Her gaze moved between us curiously. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I assured her. "Your father was just showing me some of the design elements in the kitchen." "Mom's deflecting," Jeff Stage whispered to Abby. "I just revealed I hired her company to design this place years ago, and she's processing the shock." Abby's eyes widened. "Seriously? That's weirdly sweet, Dad, in a slightly stalkerish way." I prefer to think of it as appreciating quality design. He defended himself with a smile. Now let's go hear your grandfather's reading before he sends a search party. As Abby led the way back to the living room, Jeff touched my arm lightly. For what it's worth, having your parents here, having you here, it makes this house feel more like a home than it ever has before. The simple honesty in his statement stayed with me throughout the evening, through my father's animated reading and the exchange of gifts that followed, through the laughter and unexpected warmth of this blended family Christmas none of us could have imagined 2 months earlier. Later, after my parents had retired to their guest room and Abby had fallen asleep on the couch midway through It's a Wonderful Life, Jeff and I found ourselves alone again, sharing a nightcap by the fire. I've been thinking about next semester, he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, about making this arrangement more sustainable for all of us. What arrangement? I asked, though I suspected I knew where he was heading. This cross-country co-parenting. The constant flights, the extended hotel stays, the disruption to your business. He met my gaze directly. I'd like to propose an alternative. I'm listening. I kept my tone neutral, though a flutter of anxiety stirred in my chest. Taylor Tech is expanding our Seattle presence. We've acquired a smaller firm there and we'll need executive leadership on site. I could relocate, at least part-time initially, maintain the Boston headquarters but spend perhaps half my time in Seattle. The proposal was so unexpected, I momentarily lost the ability to respond. You would move to Seattle? For Abby? For Abby primarily, yes, but also to make this situation workable for all of us. You shouldn't have to upend your life and business to maintain your relationship with your daughter. And I've discovered I enjoy the Pacific Northwest. The pace, the environment, the innovation happening there. What about Sharon? The Taylor family obligations? Boston society? I've survived Boston society for 42 years. I think I've paid my dues. His smile held a touch of the rebellion that had first attracted me to him decades earlier. As for my mother, she'll adapt. She always does. And she can visit. Seattle has excellent hotels with appropriate thread counts. The idea of Jeff establishing a presence in Seattle, of Abby being able to maintain connections to both her worlds without constant cross-country flights, held obvious practical appeal. But it also represented a significant shift in our carefully negotiated post-DNA test reality. Jeff wouldn't just be Abby's father from afar. He would become part of our local landscape, a regular presence in our Seattle lives. You'd really do that? I asked, still processing the implications. Restructure your entire company leadership, split your time between coasts, face down Sharon's inevitable disapproval, all for more time with Abby? Not just for Abby, Jeff replied quietly. For the chance to know my daughter fully, yes. But also for the opportunity to truly make amends for the past, to prove through actions, not just words, that I've changed, that family matters more to me now than corporate expansion or tailored traditions. The sincerity in his voice, the willingness to upend his carefully ordered life for this new priority, spoke to a transformation more profound than I'd allowed myself to recognize. This wasn't just Jeff adapting to unexpected fatherhood. This was Jeff fundamentally reordering his value system, placing relationship above achievement, connection above control. It would mean a lot to Abby, I acknowledged, having both of us accessible without having to choose between Boston and Seattle. And to you? He asked, his gaze steady. What would it mean to you, Heather? The question carried weight beyond its simple phrasing, asking not just about logistical preferences, but about emotional boundaries, about my willingness to allow Jeff more permanent entry into the life I'd built without him. It would take some adjustment, I admitted. After 18 years of being Abby's only parent, sharing that role is challenging enough from opposite coasts. Having you in Seattle, being a regular part of her life there, our lives, that's a bigger shift. But not necessarily an unwelcome one? His question held no pressure, only genuine inquiry. I considered my answer carefully. No, not unwelcome. Different, unexpected, but potentially good. For Abby primarily, but maybe for all of us. The smile that spread across his face held a warmth I remembered from our earliest days together, before corporate ambition and family expectations had hardened his features, before betrayal and bitterness had shattered our connection. "Then I'll start the arrangements after New Year's," he decided. "Nothing immediate. These transitions take time. But perhaps by spring I could establish a Seattle base." "Spring," I repeated, the season of renewal seeming appropriately symbolic for this new beginning. "That sounds reasonable." As the fire crackled and snow fell gently outside the windows of Jeff's Boston home, I found myself contemplating the strange journey that had brought us to this moment. From passionate young lovers to bitter ex-spouses, from strangers leading separate lives to cautious co-parents negotiating a shared future, all because our daughter had spit into a plastic tube for a college genetics project. Life's most significant changes often arrive unexpectedly, disguised as disruptions to our carefully constructed plans. Abby's DNA test had been exactly that, a disruption that threatened everything I thought I knew about my life, my daughter, my future. Yet sitting here with Jeff, watching the snow transform the world outside into something new and beautiful, I could acknowledge that some disruptions, painful as they may be initially, create space for growth, reconciliation, and second chances. Not a second chance at romance, that chapter was firmly closed. But perhaps a second chance at family, at partnership of a different kind, at the possibility that the Heather and Jeff who had failed so spectacularly at marriage might succeed at friendship, bound by their shared love for the remarkable young woman sleeping peacefully in the next room. DNA might have revealed biological connections hidden for 18 years, but the true revelation had been what happened afterward, how those scientific facts had catalyzed emotional transformations none of us could have predicted. Jeff discovering the father he could be, Abby uncovering the complete truth of her identity, and me learning that protecting my daughter sometimes meant opening doors I'd kept firmly shut, even when that required facing my own fears and letting go of carefully constructed narratives. "Merry Christmas, Heather," Jeff said softly, raising his glass in a quiet toast. "Merry Christmas, Jeff," I replied, touching my glass to his in acknowledgement of this fragile new peace between us. Outside, the snow continued to fall, covering old landmarks with new possibility, much like the future unfolding before us. Undefined, uncertain, but filled with potential none of us had imagined before a simple DNA test changed everything. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button now. And remember, sometimes the greatest gifts come from unexpected sources, even a mail-order DNA test that reveals the family secrets we never knew we were keeping. Let me know in the comments. Would you have forgiven someone who kept your child from you for